Selling candied haws, the best fabrics, this sister-in-law, come in and have a look, come over here. Fresh watermelon is a must for relieving the heat, with thin skin and thick flesh. At this time, a middle-aged man with a simple and honest face asked about the melon vendor. Are your melons ripe? The whole street is filled with the sound of selling goods, people come and go, very lively. Is this the capital of the nation of fire? Sure enough, it is prosperous. Danzo looked from the street into the distance. The street extends east and west to the quieter suburbs outside the city, but there are still many pedestrians on the street. Some are carrying burdens on the road, some are driving ox carts to deliver goods, some are driving donkeys to pull carts, and some are stopping to enjoy the scenery of the river. With the tall tower as the center, the houses on both sides are row upon row, including tea houses, wine shops, foot shops, butcher shops, temples, public houses and so on. In the store, there are special operations such as silk, jewelry, spices, incense, paper and horses, etc. In addition, there are medical clinics, cart repairs, fortune-telling, face trimming and plastic surgery, and everything from all walks of life. There are also colorful buildings and happy doors at the front of the big shops, and banners are hung to attract business. There are pedestrians in the market, shoulder to shoulder, and there is an endless stream. There are family members in sedan chairs, traveling monks with baskets on their backs, tourists from other places asking for directions, street children who listen to books, children of wealthy families drinking in restaurants, disabled old people begging on the edge of the city, men and women. Young and old, scholars, farmers, businessmen, 3 religions and 9 streams, they are all prepared for everything. Means of transportation. There are sedan chairs, camels, oxen and horse-drawn carriages of all kinds, and everything is available. It is vividly displayed in front of people's eyes. It also looks like an ancient international metropolis, where all kinds of people gather and is the center of national wealth and politics. Danzo pulled down the bamboo hat he bought just now, and got into the winding alley. The more he walked in, the fewer people were there. In a small tavern with a dark appearance, he took out his mask and walked in. There are very few people drinking in the tavern. Even if it is noon now, the oil lamps must be lit, otherwise it will be considered invisible. The middle-aged man with the abacus looked up at Danzo, and asked casually, "Do you want to drink or stay?" "I came to see the goods." Danzo's words made the movements of his hands stop. A gleam flashed in the eyes of the middle-aged man who was originally Gujing Wubo. It seems that this guest is an expert, but he has never seen such a dress before. He is a familiar face. There was only silence in response to him. He smiled indifferently, twisted a mechanism on the table, and a door suddenly appeared on a wall. He smiled at Danzo, and stretched out his hand to signal to go this way. Seeing that he really walked in front of the door, the middle-aged man showed a hint of sarcasm on his simple and honest face. The illusion arrangement is okay. After finishing speaking, Danzo slammed into the wall next to the door, but there was no sound of collision, but the whole person disappeared in place. A layer of cold sweat suddenly appeared on the face of the middle-aged man. It turned out that he had discovered it a long time ago. It seemed that the newcomer this time was quite good, and his behavior was probably no different from a clown in his eyes. My evaluation of him has risen a notch. The black market is like an underground city. Although the area is far smaller than the capital of the Fire Nation, it can be said to be comparable in terms of prosperity. It was this sight, like a fetid poppy, full of danger and sin. This is a truly lawless place, mixed with fish and dragons, warriors, bandits, and people who rebel from all religions and religions will appear here. As sunny as the capital is on the bright side, then how dark this place is, because it carries too much of the filth of people's hearts. And the location of the black market is not a secret. As long as you have been in the ninja world for a few years, you will naturally know that many things that are obviously inconvenient to sell are sold here, such as slaves, stolen goods, killer orders and so on. As soon as he entered the black market, there were a series of malicious eyes looking over, constantly looking at them, too lazy to pay attention to this group of people. After reading the information from Guchuanji, he walked straight to his destination restaurant. In the passing streets, there were many men, women and children with grass on their heads. All of them looked numb. The slave trader had a flattering face to the customers, but turned his head to face the disobedient slaves with another face. After walking for a few minutes, a restaurant that was one of the best in the black market appeared in front of my eyes. With a slight effort, the door was pushed open, and countless noisy noises erupted immediately. There are dozens of wooden tables in the hall, some communicating in low voices and some talking loudly, and the smell of wine permeates the entire hall. At this moment, a drunken strong man stood up and looked at Danzo with a sneer. "Yeah, look who this is. A kid, are you weaned? Ha 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 ha." Then he opened his oily palm and grabbed at his mask. "This mask is really pretty, show me. Do I look so bully?" Danzo spread the domineering arrogance in all directions, and the heavy coercion shocked everyone present, and the strong man was the focus of attention. Only now did he realize that the boy wearing the mask was far superior to him in strength, and now he had kicked the iron plate. He couldn't help cursing secretly, and the drink turned into cold sweat and broke out. Feeling the coercion and murderous intent coming from him, his drunken eyes regained some sanity, and looked at Danzo fearfully. "Stop, you can't kill me. The fifth rule of the black market, it is impossible to kill people in the black market. However, according to number 13 of the black market code, if someone makes trouble in the store owner has the right to deal with it." Some hurried voices sounded at the door of the restaurant. Everyone in the lobby of the restaurant couldn't help looking at the door, and found that it was a strong middle-aged man with a tattoo of a ghost on his bare arm. The person who came was Guchuanji, Hi Boss. The employees working in the store greeted him one after another, and the guests also toasted him from afar. "That's right. This tavern is the property of the Black Shadow Corps in the black market. This is a shop in the black market. Every shop owner must not only have money, but also have corresponding strength. The Black Shadow Corps, which has become famous in recent years, is under this person. Although he often says that it is just the minions of the Holy Master, the Holy Master has never appeared." But Jiu Chuanje didn't have time to talk to them, and walked straight to Danzo with a few black shadow ninjas, kneeling on one knee. "The lackeys here pay homage to the Holy Lord." Everyone in the tavern was shocked. Is the masked man in front of him the legendary Holy Master? You must know that now is not the ninja world where there are so many Junin in the later stage. Now the Chunin is the mainstay of every village, and the Black Shadow Corps has a total of 10 Chunin. The brawny man had long been frightened and collapsed to the ground. He dared to be so arrogant because of the rules of the black market, but now his reliance could no longer keep him. "Since you're here, let's deal with it," Danzing said to Jiu Chuanje. "Yes, Holy Master, please come this way." He stretched out his hand and led Danzo to the most luxurious box upstairs. No one has been there since it was built, and any dignitaries who came to ask would get a refusal answer. Today, this box finally ushered in its owner. The guests in the hall were all excited. It was really worth it to drink here today. It would be a shame to brag to others, but the strong man who collapsed on the ground was ignored for a long time. He was dragged out of the tavern by the Black Shadow Ninja and dealt with. "You did a good job, tell me, how did you work hard step by step to the present?" There was an air of luxury everywhere in the box. Danzo looked at it and said to Jiu Chuanje. "Wherever it is, it all depends on the merits of the Black Shadow Corps, especially after there are strong Zhongnin. If it weren't for them, it would be difficult for me to gain a foothold in this black market." After he came to the capital, he was in black and black business. For a while, the industry grew like a snowball, but at most he could gain a foothold in the black market, and it stopped there. It was almost impossible to make a fortune. Since the Black Shadow Corps was upgraded, they dared to stretch out their tentacles, especially relying on the characteristics of the Black Shadow Ninja. It is almost impossible to defend against assassination, so they forcibly snatched a piece of meat from the ground snake. Seeing that he took all the credit for himself, Danzo smiled. Naturally, he would not treat his subordinates badly, but the premise is that they are obedient. Seeing that he is so sensible, it is something to give him some sweetness. Then he rummaged through the items thrown into the system space before. Picked out a few acceptable things and threw them to him, and didn't plan to let him refine chakra anymore. His talent as a ninja is really hard to describe. Normal pirate physique. From the world of One Piece, after fusion, you can learn the 6 styles of the Navy. Nia of the 9 generals of the Black Shadow Corps. Cheng comes from the world of Jackie Chan's adventures, and can directly gain strength after fusion. A few rays of light flew from Danzo's hand and merged with Furukawa Kai's body. His strength rose in a straight line, and he finally rose to the level of Chunin, especially with the control of the Black Shadow Corps. Originally, he could only be said to be a non-staff member, but this time he finally joined the ranks. It's not easy. Feeling the power gap between the original heaven and the earth, he knelt down again excitedly. Thank you, Holy Master, for the reward. This subordinate will definitely follow the Lord to the death. At the same time, it gave him another warning in his heart that he can improve the strength of others at will, even the legendary immortal of the Six Paths. Since his boss is so strong, there will definitely be newcomers to challenge his position in the future. This is what I should care about. Gu Chuanje, must be Danzo's #1 lackey. The presence of the Holy Lord in this world is considered a small bomb thrown into the lake in the capital, which has aroused the attention of many people. Before, many people wanted to take this mercenary group into their pockets and become their own knives, but they were all blocked back. Now it is time to test it out and see if he is a dragon or a worm. Your Excellency, the leader of the Shadow Mercenary Group appeared in the black market. In the mansion of the daimyo in the Land of Fire, an internal official walked to the daimyo's side very lightly with the information in hand. Oh? That's the one I asked you to pay more attention to? He opened up the information with great interest. Someone had recorded dancing as early as he entered the black market. You must know that this is the capital of the Land of Fire. Darkness is inevitable, but it must be within the controllable range. As for the scope, of course, it does not threaten their dominance. What does civilian slaves have to do with them? Holy Lord, wearing a mask, he seems to be an adult dwarf. Interesting, it's really interesting. Send people to secretly contact them to see if they can be accepted. If not, forget it. Their abilities are quite strange. The daimyo sat on the throne, resting his chin on his right hand, knocking on the chair with his left hand, and suddenly issued an order. Yes, the internal officer retreated step by step. There seemed to be a voice in the silent room. Konoha, is it good or bad to have you? My lord, this is an invitation letter from Tiantian's family. Master, this is an invitation letter from Wo Jing's family. Danzo stared at the invitation letters from various families that were being handed over with a pair of dead fish eyes, which had been piled up on the floor at the same level as the desk, feeling extremely depressed. Suddenly seeing Gu Chuanje passing a letter outside the door, his eyes lit up, and he quickly put on a calm expression and said to him, Hey, Gu Chuanje, I'll just leave it to you to handle all these, I trust you. He turned his head in disbelief, and walked in with a happy face. Such an important thing, can I really do it? Of course, who made you my most valued subordinate? After finishing speaking, he used the instant body technique to leave in a hurry. The documents in the room were shaken by the storm caused by the instant body technique, and he was overwhelmed at once. Only then did he realize that something was wrong. As soon as I went to the black market, I saw many people wearing masks, and they still had the same style as myself. I felt very strange in my heart. Obviously, there were not so many people wearing masks when I came here a few days ago. Danzo touched the mask on his face and thought. He quickly asked a hawker who was setting up a stall next to him. Brother, do you know why so many people are wearing masks all of a sudden? Seeing that no one came to buy things, the stall owner was happy to chat with him, so he took it as a way to pass the time. You don't even know that. Because of the Holy Master, they all think that the Holy Master is so powerful but keeps a low profile, and they think it suits their own taste. It has nothing to do with them. Let me tell you, they are all a group of guys who like to pretend to be 13. Danzing looked at his angrily complaining, curious in his heart. Then why are you so angry? Because I was selling hats next to the guys selling masks a few days ago. Excuse me. Hey, buy a hat before leaving, big brother. Danzo took out the hat from the previous system space, threw the mask away, and was ready to go back to Konoha after putting on the hat. The peddler at the back saw his eyes light up when he saw the mask he threw, and trotted forward to put the mask in his pocket. Hey, I have to say, he's really handsome, and fits my temperament. The sun shines through the gaps in the leaves, and the warm feeling is completely different from the coldness in the black market. Sure enough, no matter how good the underground environment is, it can't compare to the nature with high sky and wide sea. The ground and the underground are completely different scenes. The young children playing around are in stark contrast to the numb faces with straws planted in the ground. This is sacrificing some people's lives to maintain this bustling area. I have to say that the current daimyo of the Land of Fire is indeed a qualified ruler, but it's a pity that in such a world, it's still a castle in the air after all, and I don't like it either. In the few days underground, the tragic scenes that can be seen everywhere are simply shocking his outlook on life of more than 20 years in the previous life, giving him an urge to overthrow everything. But unfortunately, this is a world that emphasizes power, and the sun and the moon change the sky when the wings are full. I can only suppress this impulse, let him continue to burn and explode completely on a certain day. Let's go, Toothless. Under the surprised eyes of the city gate guards, one person and one dragon started their way home. The countdown to this trip, which lasted several months, ushered in the countdown. I just don't know if all the tailed beasts have been captured, but it's the closest according to the time. Danzo sat on the dragon's back and thought. The dragon should return to the sea, and the wanderer should return to the hometown. Why did you come back so soon? Uzumaki Mito put down the teacup in his hand, and took the letter from Uzumaki Patriarch to Danzo. His face became more and more weird. In the letter, apart from her concerns and inquiries, the kid in front of me made sour complaints. I didn't expect a foreigner to be so talented in the sealing technique, and even the old guy Uzumaki Ashina couldn't help but praise him. You must know that she learned the sealing technique from him before, and she was often ridiculed by him, but I have to say that his sealing technique is indeed very powerful. There is only one possibility for him to say that, and that is that his talent is indeed high. Feng Shui turns around. She couldn't help but smile when she looked at Danzo. This time it was revenge. Yo, Danzo, you're back too. Danzo was about to answer when a hearty voice came from the room. He immediately looked at the visitor in surprise. Master Hashirama, you are back too. Holding a dry towel, Hashirama wiped his hair that had become wet from taking a bath just now, and said to Danzo while laughing. Yeah, it's not difficult to come back after catching the tailed beasts. You had to use one hand to catch the 9-tailed beasts. I didn't expect to catch them so easily. But I heard from Mito that you also went to learn the sealing technique. How is it going? Would you like me to teach you? Mito gave him a blank stare while sitting on the tatami, then stood up and took the towel. Come on, his talent is much better than yours. I have taught you for a year, and you have learned less than half of it. Hey, I'm not bad either. Why don't I ask for such a beautiful and gentle wife to come back? After hearing this, Hashirama was not annoyed, but grabbed her hand and said with a playful smile. All of a sudden, Mito made a big blush. Old and unscrupulous, there are others. Hashirama looked at Danzo, and saw that he was staring at the teacup in his hand, as if there was some cosmic mystery or peerless secret book in the teacup. 9 llama. 2 hairless monkeys. Bored. When will I have a beautiful 9-tailed fox to accompany me? Ha ha ha. Let's talk about it tonight. He touched his head with a silly smile, handed the towel to Mito, and said to Danzo, who was still studying the teacup. Danzo, since you have also learned the sealing technique, come and help Mito and me make the sealing technique of these sealed containers stronger. Okay, Hashirama-sama. Hearing this, Danzo put down his teacup with relief. Hashirama took out a scroll and slapped it on the ground. Following a puff of smoke, 6-tailed beast containers wrapped with sealing techniques appeared in the yard. The two stepped forward, each reaching out to hold down a container. 4 elephant seals. The complicated technique quickly spread to the whole body of the container, and it was strengthened again like a chain, and the tailed beast that had not been strengthened and sealed also began to struggle crazily as if it knew its own fate. At this time, Uzumaki Mito, who was watching the two of them practice their hands with the tailed beast, flew out several diamond chains from behind again, but compared with the original golden chains, there was a little more red. Several chains proficiently rushed into the container, and lifted the tailed beast up with skillful techniques. Kyubi, who was lying on the ground bored, watched the other tailed beasts being hoisted up and beaten. He stood up excitedly for a while, and lay down on the railing to watch with interest. Ha ha ha. You guys also have today. It's just a pity that there is no such unlucky civet cat, and I really want to see it also be beaten to the point of crying. But why do you feel that their tied posture is so familiar? Thinking of this, the fox fur on his body stood up inexplicably. Damn it. Why does this woman's chain hurt so much? I sense that her chakra has the breath of a guy called 9 llamas. The shame of the tailed beast, it was actually sealed in the human body. If it were me, I would definitely not. Except for the 8-tailed and 4-tailed beasts that were reinforced and sealed, the other tailed beast containers were spun like a top by the chains. They heard the screams of the other tailed beasts, and felt a little lucky for a while, lying obediently on the ground and not daring to move. After pumping for about a quarter of an hour, seeing that they were no longer struggling, Uzumaki Mito let out a sigh of relief. Okay, they are honest. Let's continue to strengthen the seal. Hashirama and Danzo looked at each other, and silently continued to seal the tailed beast. In the evening, Hokage's office. I'm going to give away all these tailed beasts. What? Brother, are you crazy? You don't understand. Only when all countries reach a balance, war will not break out, and the tailed beast is the balance agent I intend to use. Seeing Senshu Juma, who was extremely firm on this matter, Tobirama knew that he could not persuade him on this matter, so he could only take a step back and said, yes, but I have one request, that is, let them spend money to buy tailed beasts. Hashirama pondered for a moment, remembering that Konoha is now in a state of waste, and indeed needs a lot of resources to increase the speed of development. In this way, after his death, Konoha in the Kingdom of Fire can still maintain a frontline strength beyond other countries, which is more conducive to peace. So he nodded in agreement. Come on. 2 ninjas appeared in the office in a flash. Hashirama told them. You send someone to the other 4 shadow villages to inform the 4 shadows to come to Konoha for a meeting. Yes. It was during such a conversation that the future structure of the ninja world was preliminarily determined by the 4 carriages with Konoha flags set off from Konoha village to their respective destinations, and the messenger handed over the letters to the shadows in each village. Holding a stone lock in one hand and a letter in the other, Raikage's eyes flashed with excitement. Are you assigning tailed beasts? It seems that I have to go there, so let I follow me, and I can also see the demeanor of the ninja gods. To Konoha? Ha ha ha, the old man knows. Tsuchikage said to the messenger after taking a glance at the letter. Mizukage blew on the steaming tea and looked at the letters on the table. 5 Kages Conference? As expected of Senshu Bashirama, I have a big heart, I will definitely go. On the map on the wall, he was staring at Uzumaki Kingdom. It seems that this is a meeting that can affect future generations. I don't know how far my hidden sand village can go. It's still too poor. Feng Ying looked at the desert full of yellow sand and sighed. Among all the hidden villages, his territory was the most barren. In this way, the first 5 Kages conference began intensive preparation work. The participants can be said to have the highest gold content in the future. Not only the 5 Kages, but also most of the future second-generation Kages will meet there for the first time. A horse-drawn carriage with simple and rough decorations slowly came from afar. A dark-skinned middle-aged man lifted the curtain, as if unable to stand the midday sun. He narrowed his eyes. Is this Konoha? Sure enough, my Lian village is still incomparable. Looking at the fertile land under his feet, a trace of greed appeared on his cold face. You must know that the Land of Fire occupies the most fertile land in the entire ninja world. In some places, it is an exaggeration to say that you can live with a chopstick. But Konoha in the distance is crawling on the land like a war machine, exuding a cold breath. The ninjas patrolling the border of the village are well equipped, with sharp eyes, and their bodies are always tense. They cannot be easily provoked at first glance. His eyes suddenly crossed the obstacles and looked directly at the Hokage building. What's more, this god is still in this world, at least he must. Sighing, he returned to the carriage and closed the curtain again. The sound of horseshoes trampling echoed on the road. Soon, the carriage arrived at the entrance of Konoha village. At the entrance of the village, the second in command of Konoha, Senshu Fujian, came to greet him, to show that he attached importance to the shadows. Of course, Danzo, who was sleeping, was also pulled over by this teacher. Ha ha ha, isn't this Master Raikage? You are the last one to come. Tobima put on a false smile within a second, and said greetings like a friend. And Lei Ying in the carriage also put on the same smile, and said to eye with his mouth when he came out of the curtain. Learn more. It's a long way, don't worry, be patient. The rough-looking Lei Ying hugged Qianshufajian familiarly. He almost couldn't keep the smile on his face. At this time, Lei Ying found Danzo standing next to the door, his eyes flashed, and he asked seemingly unintentionally, "Who is this little brother? He looks very energetic." "Oh," he said, "Shimura Danzo is also my disciple." Tobirama pulled Danzo to him and introduced him. And Danzo had an awkward yet polite smile on his face. "Ha ha ha, it's no wonder that you are talented. It seems that your Muya village is really full of talents and outstanding people." He seemed to extend his hand to Danzo kindly, but he could only hold it up. I don't know if it's an illusion, but when he said this, Danzo's keen sense of domineering sensed the murderous intent hidden in his words. Cough. There are 4 shadows in the morning. Each of them has a strong killing intent towards him with the perception of knowledge, and each of them has an expression of admiration for him. You must know that his face is frozen with a smile. Life is not easy, Danzo sighed. Sure enough, those who are not from our village will have a different heart. In the future, if you don't raise your village, I won't be called Shimura Danzo. Ha ha ha, come down, A young man stepped out of the carriage again. His skin color was still dark, which is unique to the people of the Land of Thunder. He looked much older than Danzo, and his strength was probably at the Jonin level. This is the next Lei Ying I chose for Lian village, and also the next I. There is a sense of showing off in the words. The 2 masters and apprentices looked at each other, showing disgust, and turned their heads with smiles. Ha ha ha, there are geniuses in Lian village, look, isn't there? When the 2 started another round of verbal confrontation, the young man was observing Danzo. Danzo seemed to be wandering, but he was actually looking at the panel. Heavens and Worlds Mission System Host, Danzo Shimura. Chakra. Wind, 2.5 calories. Strength, Chunin points, 135000. Bloodline. One Piece World Family D Inheritance, Wind Swordsman Yasuo, Proficient. Skills. 1 Sword Style Tiger Hunting, Elite. 1 Sword Style Swallow Return, Proficient. 3 Body Technique, Proficient. Wind Escape Great Breakthrough, Proficient. Wind Escape Wind Cut, Beginner. Vacuum Series, Proficient. Shenfeng Wying, Beginner. 3 Color Domineering, Proficient. Dark Walking Technique, Beginner. Sealing Technique, Proficient. Items. Indestructible wooden knife, some fine steel kunai, some military food pills, some detonating charms, Sombra mask, healing potion, Zhuge Liang's feather fan, Hulk's underwear. Task. Receive shadows from the 4 great shadow villages. Reward, 4,000 points, completed. This time the task is finally completed, the small treasury +1. When Danzo withdrew his eyes from the panel, he saw the guy in front of him sizing him up, and then stared back without showing any weakness. It looks like it's noon at this time, you haven't eaten yet, let's go. Finally, the confrontation between the 2 of them was over. Seeing that Danzo didn't watch his wonderful performance, and was still flirting with the guy from Lian village on the opposite side, Tomono knocked on it. Danzo, who had a dignified Chunin physique, thought he would be able to resist, but he squatted down on the ground in pain. And the next generation I was also punched by Lei Ying and lay on the ground. For a moment, there was a sense of sympathy in the eyes of the 2 of them, while the 2 of them looked helpless. After going through some twists and turns, the group of people finally walked into the village and came to the recently renovated guest house, but it's not troublesome, just use Hokage-sama's wooden escape villa technique. And the source of inspiration for this ninjutsu is of course someone who is still covering his head. A few days later, the first 5 Shadows Conference was successfully held. After watching the terrifying power of the tailed beast, all the shadows showed great interest. You must know that a tailed beast is a strong shadow-level powerhouse. Of course, they don't know the shortcomings of Renjuli yet. The final published results are as follows. The 5 cages had a cordial and friendly conversation. They fully exchanged opinions on some issues of concern and enhanced the understanding of each other. The talks were beneficial. Originally, the cages had reservations about the distribution results. As for the process, Lei Ying. Anyway, my Lian village must have 3-tailed beasts. Otherwise, if you get out of Konoha, I will beat you. Mizukage. Come on, I really thought that Wuyan village was afraid of you. We still have the funds to buy 3-tailed beasts. If you are not convinced, fight them. Yan Ying. Listen to me. I am the strongest except for Konoha. I am a 4-headed and tailed beast, and you can divide the rest. Lei Ying. Get the hell out. Touch me if you don't agree. Labor and management have long been upset with you, old guy. Mizukage. A violent madman, an old man. Neither has the elegance of a civilized person. They are all hot chickens. Kazekage. Ah, yes, yes, yes. In the end, Lian village got 2 tails and 8 tails. Wuyan village got 3 tails and 6 tails. Yanyan village got 4 tails and 5 tails, and 9 tails, as the strongest tailed beast, of course, stayed in Konoha. As for Sand Hidden Village, thousands of words converge into one sentence: no money. It's just here to make soy sauce. Even if the mouth is worn out, it still looks bad. A salted fish posture that I am poor and helpless. The next day. Early morning. Small money, a lot of small money. Seeing the mountain of money that Shikoku paid for the tailed beast, Senshu Zhujian's eyes couldn't stop shining, and his saliva couldn't help but flow down. I can gamble for a long time. Usually Mito is strictly controlled, but now it's okay. Hee hee. Wiping the saliva with his hands, he said to the dozens of ninjas guarding the vault with a serious face. Ahem, you guys go away first, I will stay here alone and watch. Yes. All guardian ninjas have no doubt about him. After all, Hashirama is the majestic first-generation Hokage, so he shouldn't be guarding himself. I shouldn't be discovered if I only take million points. Small money, let you help me become the god of gamblers. He looked around furiously, and his trembling hand was getting closer and closer to the money bag. Bang. Thousands of hands. Stop. The familiar voice made Hashirama's body stiff. Before he could turn his head, a few golden chains grabbed his hands and tied him up. The whole person was wrapped into a ball and hung in the vault, leaving only his nose and eyes outside. When he saw who was coming, he was no longer struggling, but he couldn't stop making a huh sound, as if he wanted to explain something with that excited look. Of course, only his wife, Uzumaki Mito, could tie Hashirama so skillfully and make him dare not resist. While being hung in the air, he was also wondering why she could come here so quickly. You must know that she should be at home at this time. It was a quarter of an hour ago. In the office of Hokage, who was drinking tea, Senshu Kai raised Erlang's legs and said to Danzo, who was refining chakra. Danzo, go and verify the tailed beast gold bought by various countries sent today. Ah, I'm still. He opened his eyes while he was cultivating, and just wanted to defend himself. Qianshu Feijian stared at him. Hurry up. Okay. Danzo could only pinch Renyan helplessly. Shadow clone technique. Well, clone, I'll let you have a hard time. The avatar was also about to open his mouth to argue a few words. Being stared at by Danzo, he had no choice but to leave. Qianshu Feijian and Danzo looked at each other, and at the same time complained in their hearts. What a lazy dog. Not long after, the avatar came to the door of the vault with a warrant, and saw all the ninjas guarding the vault standing outside the gate. After curiously asking a few more questions, knowing that it was Hokage himself who came to check the amount, he immediately relieved himself in surprise. With the removal of the shadow clone, the memory also came back. Danzo felt strange and told the teacher. Feijian pondered for a moment, using a slightly weaker brain than his, and stood up quickly in a flash of inspiration. Go and invite the Tathagata Buddha. Go and invite Uzumaki Mito. With the character of my eldest brother, if I slow down a bit, I'm afraid the treasury will be lost. Danzo also reacted, and jumped out of the window without saying a word, joking. Throwing the money in the water can still make a sound, and use it to bet Hokage-sama, unless the opponent must be Tsunade to win. So, there is the above scene. Danzo and Senju Tobarama stood outside the door and dismissed all the ninjas. They put their ears on the door together and listened to Hashirama's screams in the room. You like to gamble, don't you? You're still guarding yourself, aren't you, Pa? Left foot out of the house today, right? Pa. I don't know how long it took before the door of the vault opened slowly. Uzumaki Mito came out with a relaxed expression first, and Senju Hashima followed behind with big strides as if nothing happened. A month later, with the implementation of various plans in Tokaima, various infrastructure constructions were completed like mushrooms after a spring rain, and Konoha, which originally ranked first in the development speed of ninja villages in various countries, became even faster, as if pressing a shortcut key. At the same time, other ninja villages were struggling with the resettlement of tailed beasts, and because of the funds for purchasing tailed beasts, the speed of development suddenly slowed down. Even under such a situation of ebb and flow, the ninja world has also come to Konoha for 8 years. I announce that Senju Tobema will be the second Hokage of Konoha Hidden Village. At Konoha's highest level meeting, Senju Juma stood in front of Konoha Yanin and said this matter seriously. Except for Uchiha, who was a little bit unwilling among the ninjas present, the other ninjas all expressed their approval. After all, the development of Konoha in these years was controlled by Senju Juma, but in fact, everyone knew very well that it was his younger brother, Senju Tobirama. Although Uchiha was a little unwilling, they had nothing to do. Sharingan opened Sanguyu to be able to become a Jonin, and it is the best among JNIN, but the Uchiha clan does not have a cage-level powerhouse. After a moment of hesitation, all the Uchiha Jonin could only raise their hands in approval. Since the second generation of Hokage can't grab it, then they will grab the third generation. Looking at Shimura Danzo, who is the most popular among the younger generation, they shook their heads, and a trace of despair flashed in their eyes. Although Uchiha Mirror is strong, it depends on who he compares with. The current Danzo, with the appearance of a bright moon, overwhelms the geniuses of the same generation, at least until the old guys like them die. Yes, after so many years of training, Danzo sat at the conference table as the youngest Jonin. Knowing that his teacher was firmly established as the second generation of Hokage, he didn't care about the voting results, but looked at everyone's reactions with interest. The meeting quickly came to an end. Senju Bashima and Senju Fujian walked out of the door together, and stood on the high platform where the first Hokage took office. Facing the ninjas and civilians with expectant eyes in the audience, he announced with a smile. I, the first Hokage, Senju Hashima, is here to appoint Senju Tobirama as the second Hokage of Konoha Hidden Village. Senju Bashima took off the Hokage hat from his head, touched it reminiscently, and put it on Senju Fumama's head with a smile, then took off the Hokage robe and put it on him. Second Hokage, everyone in the audience is reveling, because this represents continuation, inheritance, and a symbol of Konoha's growing strength. Standing vigorously on the high platform between the 1,000 hands, the Hokage robe behind him was blown violently by the wind, and his sharp eyes looked ahead. Now, the second generation of Konoha Hokage, Senshu Fujian, is here. Someone who was driven by his teacher to carve Yan Yan, the second generation of Hokage, silently gave his middle finger when he saw the teacher in the distance pretending to be 13. HMPH, the seat of the second Hokage was indeed taken by that bastard. It doesn't matter, this world is full of pain. I will definitely create a world where there are only winners, only peace, and only love. This is my dream and yours. Uchiha Madara saw the scene of Hokage's inauguration through Baizi, snorted coldly, and then stared at Senju Hashirama, with firmness in his eyes. Teacher. What are you talking about? Let me be the teacher of Konoha Academy. Shimura Danzo looked at the Senshu Banzo sitting in the office in surprise. What teacher? You are a teaching assistant. You are still a teacher just like you are fooling around. He stroked his forehead with one hand, and put down the official duties in his hands. This disciple really didn't let himself worry. The first batch of students is the cornerstone of Konoha Ninja Academy. All teachers must be carefully selected, especially the will of fire in the village must stand the test. And the person who can summarize and express the will of fire is Danzo, and he is an excellent candidate. Unfortunately, too young. Qianshu Fujian raised his head to look at the will of fire written by himself with admiration in his eyes. Where the leaves dance, the fire is also alive. The firelight will continue to illuminate the village and cause new leaves to sprout. Among the first batch of students, there will probably be more than half of the civilian children. Since the establishment of Konoha, its wealth and strength have created a huge attraction in the entire country and even neighboring countries. Many people have come to Konoha to settle down. Especially in recent years, with the improvement of the ninja mission system and basic equipment, it can be said that the closer to Konoha, the safer it is, and the safe environment has increased its attractiveness, and Konoha village is also happy. You must know that no matter what era it is, population is the most important thing, and the more people, the more prosperous it is. However, population growth is not enough for a village to develop. The number of ninjas must be increased. Especially now that the resources and methods of becoming a ninja are monopolized by various ninja clans. With him and his elder brother pressing against him at this stage, he may not be able to see anything. Once it continues for many years, the original clear spring of Konoha will inevitably turn into stagnant water and lose its vitality. And the Ninja Academy is the first chess piece laid by Fama, which moves the whole Konoha and turns it into running water. At the same time, it is also the road to Hokage that he paved for Shimura Danzo. To become a teacher, what you need is to exercise his leadership and test the recognition of the students. Let him teach ordinary children to win the trust of ordinary people, and then pick the right time to let him have his own hardcore team, so that he can say that Hokage's seat is firmly seated under his buttocks. Shimura Danzo is a piece of jade in the rough. His shortcoming is that he is young, but his advantage is also young, so he needs to be polished even more. Therefore, it is most appropriate to arrange a teaching assistant position for him. Sunshine pierced through the clouds, and in front of brand new buildings, many adults came here with their children. Because, this is the day when the first Ninja Academy students enrolled. A red-haired, thick-backed fat man looked around. Suddenly his eyes lit up, and he pushed aside the crowd and walked forward. "Hey, long time. I haven't seen you for a long time. Let's call Bin Yi tonight. Let's have a drink together?" "Oh, so it's you. Chu Dao Yabai. Okay, just send the child in and go." A thin man with a high ponytail stroked his beard and said with a smile. It is this year's pig deer butterfly, patriarch. Compared with the ninja chatting loudly at will, most of the civilians are talking in low voices. What do you think of the Konoha Academy run by Hokage-sama? Whatever he does, I have to send the child in no matter what. I didn't expect my child to have the opportunity to become a ninja. That's right, it really gave us hope. I didn't expect that you Uchiha would send your children here, aren't you proud? The man with pure white eyes said to a man wearing a round fan badge. I want you to care. I, Uchiha, have been acting all my life. Where is it your turn to push Hinata? But you are right about one thing. How can these civilians learn ninjutsu with the ninjas? If it is not for the sake of Master Naruto, hehe. The Uchiha member looked at these shabby but clean civilians with disdain. Shut up. This is Hokage-sama's order, we just have to follow it. Uchiha Wave kept yelling at that member, but his tone didn't mean much blame, because he also agreed with him very much in his heart. Qianshu Fama stood on a high place and looked at the crowd standing in Konoha Academy. They were faintly divided into two factions. One side was well dressed and strong, while the other side was worn out and sallow and thin. This was the idea formed after many years of the Warring States period. Ninja rather have kind. They will tell you in an unquestionable tone, ninjas have kind. And what he wants to challenge is such a monster that has imprisoned people for hundreds of years. Qianshu sighed. The road is long and long. He returned to the ground in a flash. Quiet. A series of footsteps, from far to near. The leader is full of silver hair, wearing Hokage robes. Handsome middle-aged face attracted the attention of the audience. The breeze blew through the hem of the clothes, making the robes flutter, and he lowered the brim of his hat, looking at these Konoha's future hopefuls, showing a kind smile. It's the second-generation adults. Master Hokage is here. Master Phaegian is so handsome. After a moment of silence, overwhelming sound waves rushed towards them, but there seemed to be something strange mixed in. When he raised his hand, everyone in the audience shut their mouths, only their eyes were fixed on him, eyes full of hope and trust. He walked up to the high platform slowly, and Danzo followed the teachers and stood behind him. Looking at the pure and probing eyes of the group of children in the audience, he felt inexplicably nervous. The last time he felt nervous was when he was on a mission for the first time 8 years ago. Today, Konoha Academy was established here, volunteering to cultivate excellent ninjas, and at the same time, also. The long speech began, and for some reason, he fell asleep when he heard this kind of speech. Maybe he heard too much in his previous life. Finally, I wish every student can spend an unforgettable time in the school that will be treasured in their hearts. Next, under the guidance of teachers and teaching assistants behind me, all children who plan to join Konoha Academy will undergo an entrance examination, and family members are not allowed to enter. With the end of the last sentence, everyone present became more or less nervous. At this moment, there was no difference between ninjas and civilians, and some of them were just deeply worried about their children as parents. Anyone is not allowed to whisper, and anyone who violates the rules of the examination room will be expelled from the examination room after more than 2 chances, and must not continue to take the exam, that is, the exam will fail. As soon as Tuanzang took the lecture, a sense of accomplishment rushed over his face. He was a student before, and he had never tried this feeling of berating Fang Chu on the podium. You must know that in his previous life, he had fantasized about it a lot, but unfortunately, he did not enter a normal school. I never expected that my wish would be fulfilled here. To be honest, it was quite cool. After the theoretical exam is the actual combat exam. Under his suggestion, Senshu Banjian crossed out the original shuriken throwing. After all, ordinary families still cannot afford such a burden. A total of 36 trainees passed the 2 exams. Finally, it is the test of chakra, which belongs to the scope of the test for prospective students, and is basically used to finalize the next education plan for these children. After the exam, the successful ones will naturally dance happily, while the failed ones will leave dejectedly. It can only be said that this opportunity is relatively fair, and grasping it is the first step towards becoming a ninja. Whether or not they can enter the ninja school is the dividing line in the life of most people in the village, and the current Konoha can be said to be the only place in the ninja world at this stage where ordinary people have the opportunity to become ninjas, so they can't help but pay attention to it. You must know that once you become a ninja, you will immediately change your body, cross the class, and become the ruling class. The group of children who are now enrolled in school are basically the first batch of native Konoha people, and they have seen ninjas flying over the walls when they were young. Their handsome appearance often caused them to imitate. Here is where their ninja dreams set sail. Of course, there may also be a place where the dream died. Everyone, the specific results will be announced tomorrow and the classification of classes will be announced. Please check by yourself at that time. Those who pass will officially start on September, which is the day after tomorrow. Please go to Konoha Academy as required to formally go through the admission procedures. Danzo jumped onto the high platform with a blink of an eye, and announced it loudly to everyone who was looking at him eagerly. After finishing speaking, he packed up his things and prepared to leave. Now that he stayed behind, would it be possible that the school would be cleaned by Le Zhuangding? He didn't care about their whispers. He motioned to teacher Shancheng, who had a good conversation with him just now, and left directly. It's time to go back to the miserable work life again, so take advantage of this time to enjoy yourself. At this time, at the entrance of the school on the other side, 2 people stood under the shade of a tree. A man and a woman were somewhat similar in appearance. The boy was wearing a brown training suit, and the girl was talking and laughing while talking in a purple outfit. Jin Yi. When will the boss come out? I didn't expect the boss to be so good that he became a teacher. It's a teaching assistant. I don't know if Brother Danzing is tired. It's all the same. It is the 2 brothers and sisters Shimura Dingtai and Shimura Jinyi. She has also reached the age when she should enter school, and she also achieved good results in the 2 exams just now. She has long been familiar with those exam subjects. The Ninja World version 5.3 and the simulated 800 were all arranged by Danzo, allowing her to spend a full childhood. If there is no accident, she should be the best of this freshman class. As for how she ran out ahead of time, we have to ask our dear comrade Danzing. Pat. The closed door slowly opened, and just as a gap was revealed, all the parents who were chatting nervously looked at the door. In the next moment, they rushed up one after another, surrounded the door, blocked it, and the surrounding environment became noisy. Danzo, who was the first to come out, was forced to go back, and hurriedly called a few teachers to maintain order, and dozens of children followed closely behind them. Kawada. How's the test going? Is the exam difficult? Teacher, my child. Countless questions were asked like a series of cannonballs. The teachers kept them out, but they didn't dare to use force. After all, many of these people were ordinary civilians. Upon seeing this, Danzo sighed and walked forward. Bang. An inexplicable pressure bypassed the children and teachers, enveloped the parents in front of them, and made them all quiet down. Overlord is domineering. It directly shocked them all. Although this thing is a bit tasteless, it is still good in this environment, especially after so many years of training. He can already control any power of his own at will. Regardless of his current level as Jonin, but if he really fights with Kage level, he will not be afraid at all. Seeing Danzo approaching, Shimura Dingtai and Shimura Jinyi jumped up and waved to him. Danzo glanced around, saw their movements, and smiled slightly in their direction. After repeating what I said to the students just now, the parents slowly dispersed with their children, and the previously impenetrable doorway returned to normal. The teachers who maintained order just now also breathed a sigh of relief, and cast grateful glances at Danzo. It's really thanks to him this time, otherwise they wouldn't know what to do. After all, they are inexperienced, and if something happens, it will be terrible. After the crowd dispersed a little, Shimura Nishiki ran to Danzo in 3 steps at a time. He smiled, and helplessly lowered his body and hugged her up. After Danzo picked her up, he looked at Dingtai Shimura, frowning slightly. Dingtai, you need to work harder, you are still not a Chunin after so many years. He touched his head in embarrassment, then shrugged, and said indifferently, well, it depends on my talent. My talent is at most a Chunin. It should be almost the same when the next Chunin exam is held, but my Shimura family has a boss, ha ha ha. You. Danzo also knew that he had this personality, but he didn't care too much. In these years, he was the first member of Konoha's younger generation to be promoted to Jonin, followed by Hirazaru Sarutobi and Uchiha Mirror, and he should be about to reach the level of Jonin, while most of the commoner boys recruited in the past few years were Genin, and only a few were promoted to Chunin. In the ninja world, talent determines many things. Even in the future, there will be 2 crane tails, Uchiha Obito and Uzumaki Naruto, one with Sharingan, and the other with Uzumaki Physique and Kyuubi, 2 cheating devices. Although it is not obvious in the early stage, once they meet the opportunity, they can take advantage of the wind. However, he is also a cheating tool for the younger brothers. 8 of the 9 generals of the Shadow Corps have not yet returned. With the growth of Danzo's power, the number of shadow ninjas has also increased. There are already 1,000 of them. The name of the Holy Lord is so big that even his cheap teacher knows it. When he went to his office last time, he saw the documents on his vest on his desk. Therefore, for the remaining 8 places, you have to choose those who are loyal enough to you. Although you can force them to be controlled, it is easier to be willing to do things for yourself. As soon as he came back to his senses, he saw the little man in his arms with a tangled face, so he asked curiously, Jin Yi, why are you frowning? She raised her small face and looked into Danzo's eyes with doubts. Brother Danzing, should I call you teacher from now on or continue to be called Brother Danzing? Danzing was immediately amused, and then smoothed her frowning brows with her fingers, and said with a smile, of course you call me brother, don't frown, he won't grow tall. Shimura Jinyi laughed again, and when he heard his words, he retorted, no, I want to grow taller than Brother Danzo. Okay. Danzing smiled and pinched her face, turned to his little brother and said, let's go, I'll treat you to eat. Okay. I want to eat barbecue. Shimura Dingtai jumped up immediately. At this time, Shimura Kinyi struggled to get out of Danzo's arms, and said to him, no, Brother Smelly, I want to eat meatballs. Damn sister, eating meatballs will make you fat, you don't want to become a big fat man? Slightly, I want you to take care of it. Shimura Danzo watched their bickering scene with a smile. The 3 of them walked slowly on the street facing the setting sun, and the road echoed with their laughter like silver bells playing and having fun. Chakra is generally divided into 5 attributes, namely fire, wind, thunder, water, and earth. Fire attribute chakra can set everything it touches on fire, and the flame-like high heat chakra also has an additional effect that can set the attack target on fire. It also belongs to the enhanced attack type. Wind attribute chakra can cut anything. Blade-like chakra can work on special ninja tools or techniques, and exert the strongest attack power at close and medium distances. Thunder attribute chakra is easy to spread and is suitable for use in combination with medium and long-distance spells on metal weapons. It can increase lethality and add electric shock effects. Danzo wrote on the blackboard about the changes in the nature of chakra, speaking very slowly, because it was mainly written for the children of the common people. Generally, ninja children will let them remember these things at an early age, which is the benefit of having family help. Turning his head to look, a flash of excitement flashed in his eyes, and he precisely threw the chalk in his hand on a boy who was looking around. Jiro Inuzuka, please concentrate on class. Ah, it hurts. What a handsome guy who is so good at such a good job. The boy's fugue was interrupted, and he stood up immediately, but when he saw Danzo who had activated the death gaze, he shivered and hugged his head, and sat down obediently. He nodded slightly, indicating that you kid is still sensible, so he retracted his gaze. Afterwards, watching those students stare in a daze, I felt that my genes that had gone through 9 years of compulsory education in my previous life seemed to have awakened. Don't look at my face, look at the blackboard. Why are you looking at the blackboard? Look at me. Look at me. Do I have an answer on my face? You guys are the worst class I've ever led. A group of students. Arena T we the first class? A girl sitting in Jinyi Shimura looked at Danzo who was completely different from when the school started, and asked suspiciously. Jinyi, teacher Danzo is from your family, right? Has he always been like this? I don't know. I've never seen brother dancing like this before. She looked up at him carefully, and then answered in a low voice. And because he was worried that his stupid apprentice would misunderstand his son, Qianshu Feijian ran to Konoha Academy on purpose. Unexpectedly, when he stood looking at the back window, he saw Danzo on the podium pointing out Zhongshan, and he was full of doubts. Why is this guy so skilled? Jingle bell. The bell for the end of get out of class rang, and Danzo smashed his mouth, looking at his lovely students with unsatisfactory expressions. Ahem, students, let me talk about the teacher again. Get out of class is over, get out of class is over. When he was about to learn some of the behaviors of his seniors, he saw the 1,000 hands standing in the window from the corner of his eye. Although he was not doing anything, he always felt like a mouse met a cat, so he quickly announced that the get out of class was over. Ignoring the cheers of the students in the class, he strode towards the direction outside the door. Hey, teacher, why are you here when you have time? What? I can't come. Qianshu Feijian looked at Danzo who was stroking his head while smiling innocently, gave him a blank look, took out a mission scroll from his arms, waved his hand, and signaled him to follow. There will be a mission in a few days. According to the information from the spies, I suspect that Yan Ren and Lei Ren seem to be plotting something, and the mission location is in the country of Iron. Danzo took the scroll and remembered the basic information of this country from his mind. The country of Iron? That country where there are still warriors? Yes, don't you also know swordsmanship? The new samurai over there still have some merits. Tobarama looked at the wooden knife on his waist, and said as he walked, and I suspect that some of our little ninjas from Konoha also participated in it. Why? The establishment of Konoha Academy should be a good thing. He flipped through the scroll and was puzzled. It's not a good thing for ninjas, especially those little ninjas. The difference between them and ordinary people is just a chakra extraction technique. For ninjas like Hinata and Uchiha who have a blood-stained limit, the establishment of Konoha Academy has no effect on them. Ninjas such as Yumi and Ikacho support the academy even more, because they also have unique secret techniques. Trouble is trouble, so for those little ninjas, the establishment of Konoha Academy can be said to have directly brought them to an embarrassing situation where they are treated similarly to civilian ninjas, and they will naturally not be reconciled. Qianshu sighed. He knew that his stupid apprentice would understand, so he didn't finish speaking. He turned his head at the entrance of the school and said to Danzo, there are 2 things in the world that you can't look directly at. One is the sun, and the other is the human heart. You are my disciple, and your identity is a bit sensitive. I will arrange a study trip for Konoha Academy in a few days. You should go to investigate at that time. Seeing Danzo's tangled appearance, he smiled and said, don't worry, not only the teachers from the school will go there, but I will also arrange for a group of Anbu ninjas I recently formed to protect them. Good teacher. Shimura Danzo breathed a sigh of relief, and agreed with relief. After all, they are also my own students, and the students can only be bullied by myself as a teacher. In a dark room. A few sneaky people are having conversations here. The kids from Konoha academies seem to be going on a school trip this time, should we? One of them, with a gloomy face, held out a hand to cut his throat. Idiot. Although those teachers are not strong, there is a bastard like Shimura Danzo among them. His strength can't be beaten by us ninja alone. The person who was clearly the leader among the few people scolded him and cut off his thoughts. You said, if you suddenly arranged such a trip, would you have discovered something? Do you want to postpone the meeting? Everyone's faces were uncertain, and finally the leader decided to continue the plan. Their destination is the country of soup, we are the country of iron, and there is a country of sound in the middle. What are you afraid of? The plan continues. But what did that person want to say just now? No but. Listen to me, if we miss this opportunity, we will have to wait for a few more months. The untouchables are always the untouchables, and your ancestors have been untouchables for generations, and you still want to stand up and stand side by side with my ninja. I will completely destroy your hopes. Under the faint light, their eyes were like hyenas, extremely sinister. The candles melted little by little, and when the last candle tears fell, several people turned into several shadows and left quickly. 5 days passed in a flash. Today's Konoha village is bustling with people, very lively. Several male ninjas in charge of this protection task got together. This time I went to the country of soup. Yes, the village that claims to have forgotten the war is really exciting. As ninjas who often go out to perform tasks, they have a certain understanding of the information of most countries in the ninja world. What you are looking forward to is the hot spring there. It is said that soaking in hot springs will prolong your life. One of the ninjas wearing a chunin vest seemed to have thought of something, glanced left and right and said, "What everyone cares about is not prolonging life, he he he." A few ninjas laughed at the same time, which they all understood. Although the voice of their conversation was deliberately lowered, they could still be heard as long as the ninja got closer. The elite ninja who was in charge of guarding the gate showed a chest-thumping expression and looked at them enviously. "I'm really jealous. You guys are so lucky. I also want to go to the hot springs, and I also want to go to the mixed bathing hot springs to meet beautiful ladies from other villages. Damn, the more I think about it, the more angry I get." As they often go out to perform missions, they are naturally familiar with guardian ninjas. Then he laughed. Danzo on the side also showed a depressed expression. If it weren't for the task assigned by the teacher this time, he would also want to go to the hot spring. Of course, it's just a hot spring. As for meeting the young lady or something. He, Shimura Danzo, is full of righteousness, and he is irreconcilable with gambling and drugs. Not the slightest bit of interest in it. Maybe? All the students were happily discussing how to play. After all, this is the first time most of them have left the village since they were born. In the Warring States period, ordinary people had a narrow escape from going out of the village. Most of the parents of those commoner children came here in this way, so safety was the first element. To get the consent of their parents is because of the safety of their own children, a group of school teachers, and 2 Jonin leaders. This lineup is enough to deal with some A-level tasks or even S-level tasks. Because there is an outrageous guy like Danzo, even if Kazekage kills him, he can still deal with it 1 or 2. One of the JNIN is naturally Danzo, and the other JNIN is also an old acquaintance. That's right, it's Kurama Tiantian. At the same time, Anbu sent over also had a few younger brothers he had taken in before. They can be said to be the first batch of representatives who grew up as civilian ninjas, including Mizuki Yuma and others. Because they couldn't communicate much, they just nodded at each other and entered the alert state. "I know you little guy will catch up with me one day, but I didn't expect it to be so fast." Kurama Tiantian smiled and hammered Danzo's shoulder. He touched his nose, and pretended to be arrogant and said, "That is, who am I? I am Shimura Danzo. Hey, if I give you some dye, you can open a dyeing workshop, right? You're really welcome." He scolded with a smile. Danzo smiled stupidly and didn't answer. Kurama Tiantian looked up at the sun, and after confirming the time, he nodded towards the surrounding Anbu ninjas. "Boys, it's time to go," he announced loudly. The students looked at each other, and then used chakra to jump up the branches. Although they were only ninja students, there was no problem with this basic jump. Behind him, more than 20 Konoha ninjas scattered in all directions, jumping forward with a group of students as the center of the protective circle. Within the territory of Tang country. Boss, there are no people here. A young man with a scar on his face swept away the mosquitoes flying around, ran up to a man with a fierce face, and opened his mouth cautiously. You have to squat if you can't squat, or the evil gods will hand you over to the important people. A trace of fear flashed in the eyes of the young man who asked just now. He knew clearly that his boss would really do this. He waved his hands quickly, and stumbled back to the place just now. Counting in detail, there are nearly 100 strong men ambushing in this forest, all of them armed with weapons and with stern eyes. They are one of the largest group of bandits in the country of Tang. They usually rob, and take on shady tasks to maintain their life of debauchery. This time, they took over the tasks of the cult of the evil god and a mysterious person in one go. The cult of the evil god needed people to go to the blood sacrifice, and the mysterious person wanted them to intercept the people from the Konoha Academy here. He used a little brain to figure out that this can be done together, and the people from those schools must not be strong. Although the mysterious man looked at him with familiar eyes. But this wave, one job earns 2 money, blood earns. As for the overturned car, just kidding, he is the defected Yan Yin, who is especially ninja. Overturned. It is impossible to overturn in this life. He was lying on a tree, holding a piece of dogtail grass in his mouth, thinking about the good life after getting the money. Just as he was fantasizing, his younger brother's surprised voice came from beside his ears. Boss, there seems to be a group of people coming ahead. It seems to be the group of people mentioned in our mission. Most of them are children. The bandit leader, whose thoughts were interrupted, was impatiently about to kill his little brother who disturbed him with a knife, but when he heard his words, he jumped up immediately, showing an excited expression, and told his subordinates to hide. It has been more than a day since they set off, and the physical strength of the trainees is completely incomparable to those ninjas. They have to rest for a while after they have to advance a certain distance. This day's running has almost wiped out the excitement of just leaving the village. Seeing the exhausted appearance of all the students, Kurama Tiantian could only announce helplessly. Persevere, everyone, and take a rest when you get to the woods in front of you. The students in the school responded weakly. Okay, teacher. Danzo, who had been shuttling in front of the crowd, withdrew his perception and returned to Kurama Tiantian, who was leading the team. Senior Tiantian, there are quite a few people in ambush ahead, probably around 92 people. And only one person has the aura of chakra. Is that so? A ninja's words, he began to ponder. The 2 Onbi ninjas following Kurama Tiantian stepped forward and asked. Do you want us to clean them up? It will be resolved in a short time, and the students will not see the bloody scene. No, the flowers in the greenhouse will not really grow. Kurama Tiantian raised his hand to reject their offer. Sooner or later, they will become ninjas in the future. This kind of scene is just for them to experience while I and Danzo are here. The 2 Anbu looked at each other, obviously guessing what he was thinking. For such an enemy, we guardian ninjas are strong enough to deal with them, so let's use this blood to teach their hearts a practical lesson. Shimura Danzo also spoke approvingly. This will also allow them to feel a part of the real ninja world. They are well protected. Order to go on. All ninjas be vigilant. Since the 2 most powerful people in the team said so, they naturally wouldn't object. In addition, in their eyes, this is not a bad thing, and the flowers watered with blood will eventually face the wind and rain more tenaciously. Anyway, with them around, nothing would go wrong. For a moment, the 2 teams who were about to meet each other confidently stated that the advantage is mine. The team moved forward slowly in silence. All the ninjas quickly opened up their perceptions, and those who thought they were hiding perfectly, were extraordinarily clear under their perceptions. It looks like it should be a bandit. Danzo made a judgment in his heart. He really didn't expect to meet this kind of warrior just after he came to the kingdom of Tang. No one in the group dared to rob Dao in the kingdom of fire. Why are they so brave? Did you not see the Konoha forehead protector on our forehead? Looking at the excited looks of those people who are eager to try, it doesn't look like they are here to die. As the distance got closer and closer, the fellow Chunin also spotted them, looked at each other, and tensed their bodies one by one. Although those mountain thieves are mostly ordinary people, the lion fights the rabbit with all his strength. This is the basic awareness of a ninja. In this kind of life-threatening confrontation, Those who despise each other often die miserably. Everyone mobilized the chakra in their bodies, ready to respond at any time. Close. Close. Dozens of sharp arrows came through the air, and the hasty sound rang in everyone's ears. Swish swish. Most of the students present screamed in fright at the sudden situation, only a few could barely keep calm. Don't worry, I'm here, the teacher is down, then you need to be afraid. Danzo stomped on the ground, holding a knife in one hand, and jumped up. One shot flow a swallow return. The bright light of the knife made it difficult for the students below to open their eyes until they looked up again. All the incoming arrows were chopped off in the air by the ordinary wooden knife in his hand. At the same time, after giving the order to shoot arrows, the bandit leader in the woods pulled out his sword and gave the order to charge to the group of miscellaneous soldiers, and he took the lead in the charge. Kill. Even the students who don't have the ability to perceive at this time understand that someone is attacking them. Each of the little faces looked towards the direction of the woods with fear, calmness, or excitement. Kill those guys with forehead guards. He slashed an Anbu Zhongnin who was trying to stop him. A bloodthirsty look flashed in his eyes, and he snorted coldly. Seeing how brave their boss was, all the bandits raised their weapons and slashed at the ninjas, thinking that the ninjas were just like their former enemies, and slashed and killed them at will. Damn it, Yuma-kun. Seeing that one of his companions was injured, Danzo put an end to his original idea of AA staying alive. This group of lifeless things should go to hell. The bandit leader jumped forward and was about to make up the knife. The excited eyes made him feel desperate. If he was not injured, he could barely deal with a Jonin, but now he can only be slaughtered. He closed his eyes in despair, wanting to die decently. Clang. The sound of iron clashing sounded beside him. Seeing that there had been no pain for a long time, Mizuki Yuma slowly opened his eyes, and saw a dark wooden knife blocking the bandit leader's powerful and heavy knife. You're fine if your boss is still by your side. Boss, he had the expression of the rest of his life after a catastrophe. Yes, there is a boss. Anbu, who has carried out killing missions outside the village countless times, actually showed the reassurance of a child facing his parents. After Danzo gave him a look and asked him to go back to deal with the wound, he looked coldly at the Yan Yin Ren in front of him. He looked into his eyes and couldn't help taking half a step back. After reacting, a nameless anger welled up in his heart. He, a murderer whose name in Tango country is enough to stop children crying at night, was frightened away by Danzo's look. What should he do if it gets out? Die. He took out a few detonating talismans from his waist and threw them out. He retreated and distanced himself from him, his fingers flying. Not long after, a B-level ninjutsu took shape. Earth Duna Earth Spear. The sharp horns flashed deadly and rushed towards Danzo in rows. Oh, it's just a clown. He didn't dodge or dodge, bent down, holding the knife in one hand. One knife-style AEI rows of soil thorns are cut neatly like tofu. Danzo bullied himself up, using the instant body technique and shaving together. The crown tassel fluttering like a banner, like a scarlet lightning, passed through the dark perspective. In an instant, the knife was stained with blood. The bandit leader only saw the enemy in front of him disappear suddenly, and then his perspective changed wildly, and a headless corpse appeared in front of him, which looked familiar. At this moment, he finally remembered why the mysterious man's eyes looked so familiar. Because that look is exactly the same as the look in his eyes when he looks at a dying person. The bandits who could barely fight saw their boss beheaded by the black-haired young man in front of them, and they were impeached one by one, and scattered like birds and beasts. But how can ordinary people outrun ninjas? Dozens of escaped ninjas were knocked out one by one and brought back. Naturally, these bandits will not be let go, and they should be sent to the local officials of the country of Tang for processing. This unexpected situation passed perfectly with one person suffering minor injuries. The time has come to afternoon. The gate of Tiantian village. Compared with other ninja villages, there are many hot spring hotel signs at the entrance of the village. If you look down the street, you often see beautiful ladies handing out leaflets. The whole is the scene of a paradise. And there was a kind old man standing at the entrance of the village. There was no chakra fluctuation on his body, but there was a chakra who was close to the ninja who was in charge of protecting him. Influenced by the leaders of the first generation, The leaders of Tiantian village are all ordinary people with high morals and high prestige. They call them wise men. This is the biggest difference between Tiantian village and other ninja villages. This old man is the leader of Tiantian village's generation. He was standing under a shadow at this time, and if he counted the time, people from Muyayin village were coming. This time was not only a study trip for the school, but also an exchange meeting between the two villages. Konoha needs resources, while Tiantian village needs funds. The two hit it off, and the rich natural resources in the village can also be transformed into funds to strengthen strength. Although Tiantian village has no ambition to invade others, it still has the strength to protect itself. A group of people slowly arrived at the village from a distance. The leader of Tiantian village showed joy in his eyes, and while stroking his long beard, he greeted him. Konoha's friends came from afar. It's really hard work. As the captain of this trip, Kurama Tiantian took a step forward. Where is it? We should be bothering you. After exchanging a few words with each other, he led everyone to the village. Let the old man represent Tiantian village and welcome all distinguished guests. Next, please enjoy our warm hospitality from Tiantian. Before Kurama Tiantian could say anything, a group of children behind him started cheering. He could only helplessly smile and say to him, "It's really a joke. Ha ha ha, it's okay, it's better for children to be full of energy." Danzo turned to face the impatient children, and announced loudly, "I believe you all understand the precautions, and gather at the west intersection of Rose Street before o'clock in the evening. Now, disband." The children flocked to the village like crazy. He signaled to the fellow ninjas to follow the pace of the students. They nodded and disappeared in place. After sending off leader Tang Yin, Kurama Tiantian turned his head and winked at him. "It's time for us to enjoy ourselves, too." Danzo reluctantly gave him a smile in response. "Labor and management also want to soak in hot springs, bastard teacher, woo woo woo." Several people who looked like tourists wandered in front of the hotel where Danzo and others stayed. The posture is very natural, and from time to time, he casts a secret gaze on them. It's well hidden. If Danzo didn't often use his knowledge and arrogance to observe his surroundings, he might have thought they were just ordinary tourists. In the previous life, a person with this kind of acting skills would definitely be able to teach a lot of vases to be human in the show business circle. Danzo picked up the pastry provided by the hotel in front of him and stuffed it into his mouth, chewing slowly, seemingly very leisurely. It seems that the enemy this time is not an idiot, but this is fun, isn't it? He stood up, patted off the crumbs on his palm, and walked towards the hot spring in the hotel. You have to experience it well, you won't have a chance tomorrow. The moon slowly climbed up to the sky, and they seemed to have left here with confidence in their perception. Danzo stood up from the water, stretched greatly, and made a seal. Bang! A shadow clone appeared on the spot with the smoke, and as a clone, he naturally knew what to do. He stepped forward and patted onto Danzo on the shoulder, and excitedly ran to the hot spring. Danzo looked at his shadow clone with envious eyes, and will use the shadow clone to cover his whereabouts in the next few days, but why does he feel so uncomfortable watching him soaking in the hot spring? Cough. Life is not easy, Danzo sighed. Use necromancy directly after jumping on the roof. Toothless boy, who has already reached his youth, has already spread his wings for a full 10 meters. Compared with the original Night Fury, when it really reaches the moment when its wings are flapped, there is a gust of wind howling. However, his quirky personality has not changed. As soon as he came out, Toothless looked at the feasting lights below, and jumped down excitedly, only to be hugged back abruptly by Danzo. Lying on the roof with an unhappy face, pointing his ass to Danzo, he just didn't want to look at him. Not here, we are going to the Iron Country. Ouch. It shook its head in dissatisfaction, pointed down, and signaled to go down to play. Okay. Let's have a good time next time, okay. After a long time of persuasion, Toothless boy finally reluctantly agreed, turned his head and signaled to come up quickly, go early and return early. Finally, it was flickering. Danzo wiped the sweat from his forehead, turned over and rode on. Finally, check the panel to determine your own strength. Heavens and Worlds Mission System Host, Danzo Shimura. Chakra. Wind, 8.5 calories. Strength, Jonin points, 335000. Bloodline. One Piece World Family D Inheritance. Wind Swordsman Yasuo, Proficient. Skills. 1 Sword Style Tiger Hunting, Expert. 1 Sword Style Swallow Return, Elite. 3 Body Technique, Expert. Wind Escape Great Breakthrough, Expert. Wind Escape Wind Slicing, Expert. Vacuum Series, Elite. Shen Feng Wying, Proficient. 3 Color Domineering, Elite. Illusion, Elite. Sealing Technique, Expert. Navy 6 Forms, Elite. Return of Life, Expert. Items. Indestructible Wooden Knife, some Fine Steel Kumai, some Military Food Pills, some Detonating Charms, Sombra Mask, Healing Potion, Zhuge Liang's Feather Fan, Hulk's Underwear, Gandalf's Wand. Task. Perfectly lurk into Thunder Ren, Rock Ninja Meeting. Reward. 5,000 points, unfinished. Eradicate traitors. How can others sleep soundly in the couch? Reward. 6,000 points, unfinished. Hey, 13-year-old Jonin, I'll ask who else. What's more, the current Black Shadow Mask can already summon Junin, but it takes 10 Junin to fuse into 1 Junin, that is to say, 1,000 Black Shadow Ninjas can be fused into 10 Junin. Now, he is not afraid of any heads-up, and if he makes himself anxious, he directly fights 11 against 1. Who dares to say that the item is not his own strength? Haoyue is in the sky. The stars are dotted on the dark sky, and a black lightning passes through the clouds, leaving its own trace in the sky. The current Danzo is no longer a person who goes out with Toothless Boy and kills Matt when he comes back. He found that using chakra mixed with domineering to use the wind barrier is very effective. Fortunately, the distance between the two countries is not far. At this time, a child from the land of sound saw Danzo and the others while counting the stars, and forgot to pee. Mom, come and see, there are dragons flying in the sky. His mother also came out when she heard her son shouting, but when she looked up, she didn't find anything. Turning to see him wet his trousers, he was furious. I think you want to fly. How dare you lie to others by urinating your trousers? He picked up the feather duster on the table and waved it at him. After passing through the land of sound, you will arrive at the land of iron. It is covered with snow all the year round, but fortunately, the current Toothless Boy does not have the weakness of Yi Fiend to be afraid of the cold, so he took out the mission scroll and map, and matched them one by one in the sky according to the contents inside. It's here. The Iron Country is one of the few cities that has a mutual market. In the dark night, the color of Toothless Boy's body is the best protective color, and the warriors of the Iron Kingdom do not have the means of chakra perception to sneak into the city perfectly. After landing quietly, he opened up all his perceptions. All the noisy information suddenly made Danzo a little unbearable. He barely found what he needed from it and quickly closed it. The first time he used the color of knowledge to perceive a large place, he fainted in an instant. The human brain is limited, and the ability to process information is the same. If it exceeds a certain limit, it will be forced to close, which is also for self-protection. Fortunately, Danzo's physique is not ordinary. After fainting several times, he could barely use this information artifact. Holding the knife at his waist, he walked towards the destination step by step. The killing intent in his heart was constantly brewing, and the shadow cast by the moonlight on the ground was twisted crazily, and 10 black shadow ninjas at the level of ninja came out of his shadow. The scarlet eyes shone in the dark night, and the killing intent like mountains and seas slapped the people who were plotting, and they were so overwhelmed that they couldn't breathe for a while. Mission? As long as you kill them all, isn't it a perfect infiltration? A group of conspirators broke through the door and watched them warily. Seeing the attacker, my heart suddenly sank. Except for the leader who didn't think the attacker, the others turned out to be the famous Black Shadow mercenary group in the ninja world, a famous killing machine. Danzo raised his eyebrows, drew out his knife, and said flatly, "The one who came is not kind." "You are the one who came, okay." The howling wind was mixed with snowflakes, and the road was quiet on both sides. The moonlight mixed with the light of the knife, and the chilling atmosphere surrounded the surroundings. Both sides knew very well that this was a life-threatening battle. Damn it, Shimura Danzo, you are also a ninja. Why do you want to speak for those untouchables? Wouldn't it be good to let their ancestors be untouchables for generations? The people who betrayed Konoha asked this question that has troubled them for a long time. People, shouldn't they be selfish? Why can they not take their own interests seriously? Because I'm from Konoha Ninja Village. I'm Shi, Village, Dan, Zhang. The strong wind blew the corners of Shimuraden's clothes rattling, his strength was no longer preserved, and the light blue chakra fluctuations exploded. The 5 Yanin of the enemy all tensed their bodies, while the remaining 10 Chunin even clenched their teeth, resisting the pressure he exerted. The strength of a 13-year-old can be so strong. Is Konoha going to make another Senju Bashirama? There was a hint of bitterness on Lei Ren's face, and his tone was full of loneliness. He worked so hard until he was nearly 40 years old to have the current strength. Unexpectedly. Genius is the most enviable thing in this world. Every time I see a genius, it makes me realize my incompetence. Senju Hashirama is, Uchiha Madara is also, and now, you appear. The jealousy in Yan Ren's eyes is about to emerge, and he can't wait to peel off the skin and bones of this high-spirited young man in front of him. Lei Ren and Yan Ren looked at each other, and they both saw the determination in their eyes. This time, even if he died, he had to keep Danzo here, otherwise, after 10 years, he would be a thousand-handed Hashirama, who overwhelmed the ninja world. They have been crushed by a 1,000-hand column for decades, and there can be no more one. The long hair has been scattered, flying in the sky, and the silent pressure seems to have shocked the world. Shimura Danzo leaned over, holding the knife in one hand. The domineering aura of the armed color quickly spread to the blade, and his aura reached its peak. After several years of training, they have already mastered the Tao of Gale Wind. Now, they are also the first enemies to try this trick, so feel honored. Profound Trutha Blaster of Absolute Breath Slash. Disappearing from the enemy's field of vision in an instant, they looked around in panic, and the traitor Murakami Shinobi was the same. He forced himself to calm down, and held the kunai in his hand tightly. A traitor is more irritating than a foreign enemy. It was as if the god of death was chanting softly beside his ears. After reading out his charges, he felt himself plunged into darkness. His body seemed to have been chopped off by countless knives in an instant, and it was directly turned into powder, and was swept up by the strong wind and became a part of heaven and earth. After witnessing the silent disappearance of a ninja of the same strength with his own eyes, even the experienced Yanin couldn't hide the horror in his eyes, and those Chunin even fought with the Black Shadow Ninja with kunai like crazy. Obviously, in their opinion, it is better to fight against the famous Black Shadow Corps than to fight with Danzo, so as to have a chance of survival. The remaining 4 Yanin relied on their extraordinary psychological quality to stabilize their minds, jumped to the roof, and gritted their teeth. Water Escapea Water Chaos Thunder Tuna Earth Walk. Wind Escapea Breakthrough Fire Escape A Haoyanwa. Water Dungeon with Lightning Dungeon Wind Escape combined with Fire Escape. Each of the 2 ninjutsu is fused with each other, forming a power of 1 + 1 greater than 2. The people from the 2 ninja villages used their most tacitly coordinated ninjutsu. In an instant, Danzo was about to face the siege of these 4 B-level ninjutsu. Death is like the wind, always with me. The way of the vagabond is activated, living to death. Wind barrier. A wind wall perfectly covered Danzo in an arc. Bang. The smoke from the explosion caused by the collision of ninjutsu rose in place, and the strong wind seemed to be weakened by the aftermath of the explosion. The 4 ninjas gasped and looked at the center of the explosion. Seeing that there had been no sound for a long time, their faces showed the joy of being alive after the catastrophe. Finally get rid of that monster. What kind of genius? I think it's just a waste of fame, ha ha ha. The smoke dissipated, and Danzo appeared on the spot intact, with the corners of his mouth curled up. That's it. Is it my turn now? Although the tone is asking, the figure has disappeared. One sword style a tiger hunting. The violent airflow formed a giant blue tiger, which rushed towards a rock ninja. Damn it, don't. He raised his arm feebly, trying to block the blow. But the result is obvious. After solving this one, he drew his sword and stood up, stepped forward and cooperated with Zon Gangshan to decapitate the other rock ninja who was standing close. The remaining 2 Lei Ren were terrified, and one of them said sternly, "GG Village Danzo, if you kill us, aren't you afraid of causing a war?" Danzo laughed after hearing that. Hey, come on, come on. Senju Bashirama will let you have 2 hands, and the whole Konoha village can just sit next to it and shout cheers. Suddenly, I saw a fire dragon approaching from a distant street. It should be the ninjutsu explosion just now that attracted the unique warriors from the Iron Kingdom. Danzo squinted his eyes and looked at Lei Ren, who was thanking someone for saving the scene. They were trembling at the sight of Danzo, and they barely stood up, planning to drag it until the arrival of the samurai. Wind escape a vacuum sword. An ordinary B-level ninjutsu exerted great power in Danzo's hands. Dozens of wind blades cut them all over in an instant. The fear of death finally defeated the loyalty of the village in his heart. Don't kill us, we surrender. They tremblingly looked at Danzo, who held their life and death in front of them, hoping to see a hint of hesitation on his face. After all, they are Junin, belonging to a high-level combat power of a village, if not for meeting him. They thought bitterly in their hearts, and at the same time, they also wanted to buy some time. In the face of death, what is dignity? Being a dog? You are not worthy, Danzo said with a sneer, and then looked behind him. The Black Shadow ninjas have already dealt with all those Zhongnin, and now they are surrounded. Originally, I wanted to see him young and deceive me a little bit, but I didn't expect that I would not be fooled at all, and all the subordinates I brought were dead. Now it is definitely a death situation. Looking at each other, I can see the death will in the other party's eyes. Throwing off the coat on his body, revealing the detonating symbol of a vest, he looked at Danzo frantically. Ha ha ha, since you don't want labor and capital to live, let's die together. With a genius like you and the entire Shadow Corps buried with you, this life is worth it. The two squeezed their last strength, reached out and grabbed the clothes of one of the Black Shadow ninjas, and laughed. Danzo showed an expression of looking at a fool, and used the instant body technique to leave the explosion site, but the Black Shadow ninjas did not leave, but surrounded them. The detonating talisman on their bodies had already been triggered, and looking at Danzo, who was laughing at them, they seemed to understand something in their hearts, but it was too late. Bang! The huge explosion flames engulfed the abandoned street, and as the flames were extinguished, only broken walls and rubble remained on the entire street. Ding! Mission completed. Stop! Who? Hearing the more violent explosion than before, the samurai rushed over with torches at a faster speed. The leading samurai saw Danzo's figure from a distance, but he couldn't see clearly because of the smoke. Danzo looked back at the leading samurai, then turned and walked into the smoke. In the smoke reflected by the fire, a dragon shadow rushed to the sky and disappeared in a blink of an eye. When the warriors arrived at the scene, they only saw wreckage all over the place. The white snow had been dyed red and black, and the original streets were torn apart by explosive symbols. And in a room far away, the young Mifune leaned on the window and watched Danzo's retreating back. A seed was quietly planted in his heart. Finally completed the task given by the bastard teacher. I'm freezing to death. I want a hot spring. I want a sister. Ahem, don't get me wrong, it's mainly for keeping warm. Wow. Toothless Boy simply nodded, and then speeded up. Although he is not afraid of the cold now, compared with the warm environment, he still prefers the latter. After a while, we arrived in the country of sound again, and the wind and snow were much less. At dusk, the child who was beaten so sleeplessly lay on the tatami and counted the stars outside the window, and suddenly saw Toothless Boy again, and Danzo also saw him lying outside the window, and greeted him with a smile. He suddenly became excited, and ran barefoot to his parents' room without caring about his sore butt, dragging them out of sleep. Two sleepy-eyed, angry men walked slowly to the window of his room. He said to the child in front of the window, "Stinky boy, if you don't have it, just wait." After speaking, he looked out the window. The moon and stars are sparse, black magpies fly south, clouds blossom one after another, and Toothless has already flown away. The bright moonlight shone down, reflected on his father's belt, reflected on his mother's feather duster, and reflected on his pale face. What? Danzing, who had already flown away, seemed to have heard something, and said in surprise, "Toothless Boy, did you hear anything?" Toothless, who was concentrating on going back to Tiantian village to eat and drink, shook his head. That may be my auditory hallucination. It's so strange. I seem to have heard a similar sound when I passed here last time, but this time, it seems a little more miserable. Danzo shook his head, only regarded the voice just now as an auditory hallucination, and also looked forward to the good life back to Tiantian village. After all, this is a public tour. Sitting on the back of a dragon, he treats Danzo like wind elves in the face of the wind that is very uncomfortable for ordinary people. Perhaps it is the effect of the way of the wanderer. Now there is no need for chakra to maintain the wind wall. Sure enough, fighting is the best way to improve your strength. In the future, my teacher will let Uchiha take charge of the security team. It must be the same idea. To feed a group of ferocious wolves so that they lose their wildness. Without the training of fighting, it is just some ordinary training. Even the fighting clan with Sharingan can only be slaughtered. Dare not. Danzo looked at the wooden knife on his waist. His face was full of confidence. He was confident that he could tame these wild wolves, no matter what method he used. Toothless seemed to feel the high spirits of the master on his back, opened his mouth and spit out a mouthful of dragon flames, then accelerated. One person and one dragon passed through like this, then turned his head and looked at Danzo with his tongue sticking out. Ha 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 ha. In Tiantian village. After one person and one dragon took off their clothes, they plunged into the hot spring. Ah! The feeling of soaking in the hot spring after going to a place full of wind and snow, so comfortable. Danzo got out of the water, spit out a mouthful of water, picked up a white towel from the nearby stone and covered his forehead, put his hands on the edge of the stone steps, and enjoyed it. Ow! Toothless boy also got out. Ordinary towels couldn't cover his forehead, so he covered it with a bath towel, imitating Danzo's claws and resting on the stone. Fortunately, the hot spring in Danzo's room is large, otherwise it wouldn't be able to accommodate its current figure. The warm spring water wraps the whole body, making people drowsy. Danzo smashes his mouth, and looks at the area separated by bamboo boards from time to time. I want to give a bad review for this hotel. It's not a mixed bath. At the same time, in a certain invisible house in Tiantian village, candles were lit by the visitors one by one. Several mysterious people in black robes stood at the place where strange patterns were painted and shouted together. Evil gods live forever. The voices were hoarse but firm, as if their beliefs were watching them all the time. The leader in black robe pulled down his hood, revealing a middle-aged face full of evil spirits. Tiantian village has been peaceful for too long. The evil god is eager to kill, and he will not be happy if this goes on. The village that forgot the war. Snort, ridiculous. He looked up at the location of Tiantian building and let out a laugh. What wise man. The value of these people is only when they become the sacrifices of Lord Evil God. Just wait, I will bring you one by one into the arms of the evil god. Elder, this is the data of the last few months. A younger voice came from a man in black robe below, and took out a piece of data from the robe in a respectful tone. Oh, it's Chuanhe. How many believers have joined recently? The middle-aged man called Great Elder reached out to take the data without looking at it, raised his eyelids and asked him. There are more and more people who are disgusted with the life that is now the same, and they are eager for change. The corner of the Great Elder's mouth curled up into a smile. Ha ha ha. Let some believers who are not firm in their beliefs go to see Lord Evil God as soon as possible. Using them to study the power bestowed by Lord Evil God is also a kind of gift to them, isn't it? Yes, the Great Elder is right. When he heard him talking about the power of the Evil God, his eyes also showed strong ambition. He had never seen such power before. Thanks to the geographical location, he had seen it, whether it was a samurai or a ninja. But the power of the Evil God with strong immortality is much stronger than chakra. In his opinion, with this power, it is not impossible to defeat the god of ninjas. He wants to conquer the ninja world. It's a pity that the research time is too short, and there is no real finished product. There are only some monsters that have been eroded by power. They have no reason of their own and only instinct. This is not the state they want. It's just hate. The mission entrusted to a bandit group was messed up by Konoha's people. That's a lot of money. What a waste. Thinking of the recent sacrifice incident, the corner of the elder's mouth twitched. The current cult of evil gods is completely dependent on the support of believers, and the funds are not rich. This time, it can be said that some believers were sacrificed in exchange for the stability of evil gods. He couldn't help feeling a little heartbroken. You know how difficult it is to train a believer. Those people are the backbone of the cult. He angrily opened the document in his hand, and scratched hard on the record of this incident with his withered fingers. Konoha Hidden Village, Shimura Danzo, you must pay the price. Welcome next time. The leader of Tiantian village brought a group of beautiful young ladies and several high-level officials and said to Danzo and others who were about to leave the village. The 5-day school trip passed quickly, and the group of Konoha Academy carried their bags, which were much bigger than when they entered the village. In addition to some daily necessities, there were also many unique souvenirs of Tiantian village. After all, this is a rare trip abroad. During these 5 days, after some wrangling, the cooperation plan between Muiyan village and Tiantian village was initially finalized. Judging from the smiles on both sides, they should be satisfied with this. What makes Danzo feel strange is that next to the leader of Tiantian village, there is a gentle-looking middle-aged man who has been looking at the students of Konoha Academy. His eyes make people feel very uncomfortable, just like a hyena looking at his prey, and when he looks at himself, he has a strong hatred. Although I feel inexplicable, but as the master of Yi, the Dragon Knight riding on the back of Yi Fu, the inheritor of the Gale Sword, how could the future Hokage-sama let himself suffer? Immediately, he used the technique of learning illusion before to stare at chakra in his eyes. When the eyes intersected, he rushed towards him with domineering aura mixed with murderous intent. After he regained his composure, he saw Danzo smile at him, and he barely moved the corner of his mouth. Obviously, this smile gave him a chill down his back. On the side, Kurama Tianyan seemed to feel something when he was talking enthusiastically with the leader of Tiantian village. He turned his head to look at Danzo, but he quickly turned back and started talking again with a smile as if nothing had happened. Not long after, Danzo and the others said goodbye to them, jumped up the treetops, and disappeared into the dense forest after a while. Danzo, did you do something just now? On the way of running, the pommel horse Tianyan jumped to his side and whispered in a voice that only 2 people could hear. I always feel that the person just now is very strange, and I feel a deep malice in him. Kurama Tianyan obviously knew that Danzo's perception ability was extraordinary, so he said with a smile, I didn't expect you to be so proficient in illusion now, I almost didn't notice it. As one of the best illusion masters in the village, he is naturally qualified to say this. What shocked him was how Danzo's talent could be so terrifying. Swordsmanship, ninjutsu, illusion, and sealing techniques are all involved. Late at night, in Tiantian village, the great elder of Tiantian village lifted the quilt with his bloodshot eyes open. He was awakened countless times in just one night, and every time it was the same dream. If the first time was a coincidence, then the next dream would not be. He hurriedly found ninjas in the village who were good at illusion, but they couldn't detect any illusion. This made him want to capture the ninja in front of him and dedicate it to the evil god, but due to the appearance of the character, he could barely smile and let him back out. In his dream, he was suddenly placed in a mountain of corpses in a sea of blood. There were all kinds of tragic corpses everywhere, and the evil god he believed in was staring at him greedily in the sky. Such eyes are like a sacrifice to him. At this time, he remembered the strange feeling of Shimura Danzo looking at him when Konoha and others left the village. All of a sudden the mystery became clear. He stood in front of the mirror, washed his face and gritted his teeth, thinking, Shimura Danzo, I will never let you go. In the mirror, his face was pale and his eyes were red. At this time, without the disguise of daytime, he looked like a wicked ghost who would choose people and devour them. Danzo leaned against a branch of a big tree and dozed off, suddenly sneezed, rubbed his nose, and fell asleep again. In short, apart from some turmoil during this school trip, fortunately, only one of Konoha's guardian Anbu was slightly injured, and there were no serious injuries or sacrificed ninjas. Moreover, the resource cooperation with Tiantian village is also progressing smoothly. Generally speaking, it is a successful conclusion. Qian Shufei directly passed the document handed over by Kurama Tianyan, put it on the table, stood up with a solemn expression. Everyone. Thank you for your hard work. Everyone in the office heard the words and said in unison, no hard work. Qianshu glanced at the crowd, his eyes soft. These people all possess the purest will of fire, either the school teacher or his direct subordinate Anbu. Oh, yes, and that bastard apprentice. Shimura Danzo will stay, and the rest will disband. Take a good rest. Yes. After hearing this sentence, all the ninjas left at once using the teleportation technique, and the office was suddenly much emptier. Shimura Danzo, who was standing upright at first, saw that there were only the two of them left in the office, and suddenly became carefree. He walked to the desk in Senshaoban, sat down on it, picked up the teapot next to him, and drank. The people who were assisting Hokage to handle official duties were not surprised, they were obviously used to it. "Hey, you bastard disciple, you're really welcome." Qian Shaoban grabbed the teapot in his hand, took out 2 teacups from a side drawer, and poured the tea into it. "This tea is not drunk like you, it's like chewing peonies." Ha ha ha. Danzo took the teacup with a smile, and drank it in one gulp. "Forget it. You haven't been in good shape all day long. How is the mission doing this time?" He saw that Danzo was still stubborn, and the corner of his mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything else, obviously knowing that his apprentice had such a temperament. "But it's good like this, and it's easy to get along with each other like this." Danzo wiped his mouth with his hand and started talking. From hearing their plot to beheading the village trader on the spot, to fighting against 4 veteran Junin alone, although he still looks calm on the surface, he can't help but stir up waves in his heart. His growth rate is too amazing. According to his vision of the ninja school in the future, he should have just graduated from the ninja school at this age to become a lower ninja, but Danzo's current strength has surpassed that of the upper ninja. In all honesty, although I am also a genius, I don't have his strength at his age. Perhaps only my elder brother and Uchiha Madara can overwhelm him. However, he is more like a complex of himself and his elder brother, with strength and good creative ability at the same time. His heart, which had been tense all the time, also relaxed a little. His elder brother's body knew that it was a waste of his last strength to catch the tailed beast, and now he was relying on the vitality of the cells to support him. But he was unable to go to the battlefield anymore. Fortunately, although the tiger was sick, his prestige was still there. As long as 10 years, in another 10 years, I have the confidence to raise Konoha's strength to another level. By then, Danzo should have reached his level of strength. Konoha, don't worry, on the crowded streets of Konoha village. A middle-aged woman was walking on the road with a bag in one hand and a basket in the other, ready to go grocery shopping unsuspectingly. A man wearing a cap sitting on the side of the street stood up when he saw her, and followed her furtively. He took out a blade from his pocket, took the wallet in the bag with a swipe, and then disappeared into the crowd. Just 2 steps away, she suddenly felt the bag lighten, picked it up suspiciously and rummaged through it, and found a bright light in the originally sealed bag, and when she touched it hard, a crack was impressively visible. "Ah! There are thieves." The man lowered his hat as he walked away, tilted his head and felt the weight of the wallet, and smiled with satisfaction. Suddenly, a hand grabbed his hand that was holding her purse in his pocket. Hey, old man, this is not good." His pupils shrank, and he looked up at the person who came. A handsome black-haired boy's face appeared in his eyes. After seeing clearly that it was such a little ghost, a fierce light flashed in his eyes, and the other hand held a blade and slashed towards the caught hand. "If it's not the protagonist, it's useless to talk," the young man complained, and the other hand directly knocked out the desperate guy in front of him. He touched the downed thief and took out a wallet embroidered with peonies. At this moment, the woman pushed aside the crowd of onlookers, looked at the thief lying on the ground and the boy holding the wallet. She was overjoyed, and trotted forward to take the wallet, thanking her incessantly. Yes, this is my wallet. Thank you so much. Hey, isn't this Shimura Danzo? I remember you." Seeing that Danzing was recognized, he was planning to accept the admiration of the masses. "You seem to have carved your own head on Hokage Rock. Ouch, that's so pretty." "Hey, stop, it's raining locally at my house, go back and have a look first." For a moment, I didn't expect this aunt to tell her glorious history, and she hurriedly stopped her and ran to the Hokage building with the blinking technique. "The guy who fell on the ground will trouble you to catch him and take him to prison." Everyone looked up at the big sun in the sky, and there was no cloud in the sky. Bang. "Teacher, what do you want from me?" Carelessly, he pushed open the office door and said to the office door. The pile of documents on the desk suddenly fell down. Click. The pen he was holding let out a whine and was suddenly broken. "Can you be gentle with your hands and feet, you bastard?" Danzo also knew that he had caused trouble, so he touched his head in embarrassment and smiled silly. He bent down to pick up the documents that had fallen on the floor, turned them over a few times, and found that they were all trivial matters. Teacher, do you deal with these things every day? Rubbing his temples with both hands, he said with a helpless expression, yes, most of them are sneaking things in the village. When he was comfortable, he told Danzo about his next plan. I'm going to set up a Konoha guard. Come yet? Uchiha's pinnacle of power is also their cage. There was a flash of light in his eyes, although he had already got the answer, but he had to ask clearly, otherwise I don't know if my butterfly wings will change him. Then what about the candidates? For the security team, strength is also a factor, right? Yes, I plan to let the Uchiha clan take charge of this department. Staring at the disciple in front of him whose expression didn't change, he was extremely satisfied, and it seemed that he thought the same as himself, but judging from the data, he had some issues with the Uchiha clan, which had to be resolved as soon as possible. It seems that you are not surprised, Danzo, let's talk about your thoughts. He calmly took out another pen, and while spinning it in his hand, he also planned to test this disciple. I think this incident is a good thing or a bad thing for Uchiha. It strengthens the power of his own clan and imprisons them in the village, but I always feel that there is something I didn't expect. Hearing Danzo's answer, he nodded slightly. He was much smarter than that guy Sarutobi Hiruzen, but it wasn't enough, he was still too immature. This is one reason, but not the main one. This problem can be regarded as a task I assign to you. The deadline is 1 hour. If you understand it, please let me know. Scratching my head, I always felt that there must be some clues inside, but they didn't connect in series. The clock hanging in the office turned 1 frame at a time. Suddenly, he had a flash of light. By the way, the security team is the department that has the most dealings with Konoha villagers. With Uchiha's arrogance, he will try his best to maintain this responsibility. At the same time, because of this arrogance, the villagers can also recognize Uchiha. Since Uchiha Madara's defection, the villagers have colored eyes on the Uchiha family. Let them have to contact each other to clear up each other's misunderstanding, so that Uchiha can truly become a part of Konoha. At the same time, if Uchiha Kagami does not die, he must have his share in the future assistant of Naruto. This way can definitely make the gap between Uchiha and Konoha disappear. Hi, it is Hi. It is indeed the most political player among the 7th Hokage. When Danzo told him what he thought, Senshu Feijon's eyes were also satisfied. He thought he couldn't think of it, but after asking all the disciples, he gave up hope. Konoha is really lucky to have such a disciple. Putting the pen in his hand on the table, he turned around and looked at Konoha Street outside the window with his hands behind his back, and murmured, I'm afraid there are too many smart people in Uchiha, but they are not smart enough. But never mind, I can definitely change all that. Qianshu Feijian stood in front of the window in high spirits. At this stage, the two shadows of Konoha coexisted, and the disciple was already growing. At this moment, he was full of hope. Notice. Let all the family patriarchs come to the meeting tomorrow. Yes. Onbi in the house jumped out of the window after receiving the order. Although you are handsome when you use the instant body technique, but you are very embarrassed when you line up to jump the window. When Danzo was slandering, Tobirama turned his head and said to him, Shimura Danzo, you go too. Looking around, when he was sure that there were only the two of them in the room, he stretched out a finger and pointed at himself in disbelief. What? Ah, what? You go to the land of the Uchiha tribe. Tobirama stared at him, and he could only go obediently. Goodbye, holidays. Danzo squatted on the window and sighed. I'm Dio. Suddenly, a big foot came from behind and kicked him out immediately. Is there something wrong with each of them? The door won't go through, why jump through the window? The figure in the door appeared in front of the window, looking at Danzo lying on the ground. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. This Uchiha has already established a village within a village. Walking in the Uchiha clan's family land, in the outermost street of the resident, there are all kinds of goods, and it seems that they are all managed by ordinary people of the Uchiha clan without ninja talent. This arrangement is beneficial to the ethnic group and can improve the cohesion of the family, but it also isolates the family from the Konoha villagers. When the quality of the product is the same, they are more willing to buy it in their own family land, even if the price rises slightly. Shimura Danzo, who was watching, shook his head. Danzo. Why did you come to my Uchiha? Uchiha Kagami jumped in front of him with the training bag, and said with surprise. The wet training clothes on his body and the dripping hair all indicated that he had just returned from training. It turned out that it was Kagami who came to inform the Uchiha Patriarch to go to the Hokage building for a meeting tomorrow. The teacher should have told you. Yes. Different from the gloomy expression he had just left the Hokage building in the morning, he was full of vigor at this time. When the teacher asked him in the morning, he thought that Tobirama had a prejudice against Uchiha. After returning home depressed, he picked up the ninja bag and went to training, but during the training, he suddenly realized the benefits of this matter to Uchiha. What worries him is that the clansmen may not understand the deep meaning contained in it. Since Lord Uchiha Madara left, the clansmen have become more and more sensitive. Coupled with their arrogance, it can be said that quite a few people have become powder kegs, and just a little spark will detonate them. After a moment of hesitation, he stepped forward and said, Danzo, let me go to the Patriarch with you. At least, let the Patriarch realize the benefits brought by this department, so that it is possible to persuade the clansmen. Shimura Danzo froze for a moment, then nodded in agreement. The two walked towards the center of the clan place one after the other. The Uchiha people on the street looked at the two with a little surprise, because very few foreigners came to the Uchiha land. Soon he came to the door of the Uchiha Patriarch's house, and Danzo reached out and knocked on the door. Knock knock. After a while, the door slowly opened from the inside, and a gentle woman ushered her in. After the two thanked him, they met the current Uchiha Patriarch Uchiha Sanming. He has a square face and a resolute expression. After seeing the two of them, they made tea, put 2 cups of tea in front of them, and asked, What's the matter? It's like this. Hokage-sama told all the patriarchs of the ninja clan to go to the meeting, and they must be there. Danzo picked up the tea and took a sip and said to him who was sipping tea, then took out the letter written between the leaves and handed it to him. Uchiha Sanming put down the teacup, took the letter and opened it to read. After seeing that his task was completed, Danzo got up and prepared to leave, and signaled Uchiha Mirror with his eyes, and the latter said goodbye to him after sending a message that he wanted to stay a little longer. After Danzo left, Uchiha Sanming put down the letter without changing his expression, and tapped on the table with his fingers. As time passed, Kagami, who was sitting quietly on the chair, couldn't help it. I don't know what the Patriarch thinks about this matter. What do you think? I'll sit and watch. Seeing that the most prestigious genius in his family finally lost his composure, he couldn't help but tease him with a smile. All right, in my opinion, the advantages of this matter outweigh the disadvantages. Although there are many restrictions, as long as it is used properly, it will be a great thing for our family. Seeing Uchiha Mirror's dull face, he smiled. You don't think I, the Patriarch, don't understand anything, do you? Uchiha Mirror's face was flushed. It is not easy to become the Patriarch, not to mention that he was replaced after Uchiha Madara, the ninja Shura, left, so the means needless to say. He sees the problems in the clan now and keeps them in his heart. Although he wants to change, he does not have the strength like Uchiha Madara, and he does not have a suitable opportunity. You know, there are still many people in the clan who miss Uchiha Madara's glory, and they are the real hidden dangers of Uchiha. It was the first time to hear the Patriarch say this to Uchiha Mirror, who was shocked, but also asked very puzzled. Why are you telling me this? Aren't you afraid that I'm also a follower of Uchiha Madara? The water in the teapot rushed into the teacup mixed with the powdered tea, and slowly swirled. He picked up the teacup again and blew gently. Because I believe in the old fox Senshaobanzo, and I also believe in the eyes of the little fox Shimura Danzo. He no longer cared about the tea that Uchiha Sanming handed him, and said incomprehensibly, just because of this. Yes, it's because of this. I'll take care of this matter. He poured down the steaming tea in one gulp, picked up the teacup, and signaled to see off the guests, and the woman beside him welcomed Uchiha Mirror out. In the living room where he was alone, Sanming Uchiha crushed the teacup in his hand. The teacup fragment scratched his palm, and blood flowed down the wound drop by drop, but he didn't seem to notice it. In order for Uchiha to successfully integrate into Konoha, a strong man must break his wrist. It's time to fix this problem. It's just a group of remnants of the old era, you can't turn the sky. That night, After Uchiha Sanming ran to Hokage's office to talk, he stayed up all night. As for the huge Konoha, how many of the countless ninja patriarchs can sleep? The next day, in the conference hall of the Hokage building, all the members of the Konoha ninja clan entered one after another, which represented the most powerful place in the village. All of them were silent, presumably because they learned some of the content of the meeting through their own means, or in other words, Tobuma deliberately wanted to spread the news. The Konoha garrison is responsible for the security of the entire village. Whichever family has such power can become the top power family in Konoha. But it is also a hot potato, especially for families like Uchiha and Senju who are already at the top of power. Danzo stood on the top of the building and looked at the mask in his hand. I did it according to my own will. After I went there yesterday, the bastard teacher included himself in Anbu as a non-staff member, and also served as a teaching assistant at Konoha Academy. It's really grabbing a sheep's wool, but the mask is pretty good. The silver-white mask, mixed with a few touches of red dragon patterns, looks holy and a bit bewitching. It is really handsome when combined with the imperial robe. My Danzo is really jealous of Hokage. No, I am decent. It should be a persistent pursuit. Cough. I don't know how the next meeting is going. Pulling out the wooden knife at the waist. The wooden knife is now permeated by the color of the weapon, and there is a sound of gold and stone colliding when it is lightly tapped. Even if there are a few blood-red threads inside, it cannot be wiped off no matter how much it is rubbed. Click. The door of the conference room opened slowly, and most of the people walked out with smiles on their faces. Only the patriarch of the Uchiha was smiling, and the rest of the people had uncertain faces, and walked quickly to the clan's place in a grieved manner, seemingly not paying attention to their patriarch at all. When Danzo was in a daze, a faint voice came from his ear. Danzo, go to Anbu and ask all members of Team Tiger, Bo, and Niu to come see me. Tobima quietly appeared next to Danzo, and with his current knowledge and domineering attainments, he couldn't even perceive it at all. Really worthy of being the #1 fast ninja in the ninja world, Danzo's impetuous heart was pressed down. Inside the Uchiha clan. Bang! Uchiha pushed open the gate of Nanga Shrine in an instant, and said indignantly, thousands of hands are really deceiving people. The few Uchiha who followed did not put their inner thoughts on the surface like him, but they also had gloomy faces. He is going to raise Uchiha to waste. It also uses Yongmu, like a delicacy that has been poisoned with chronic poison. Elders, what should we do now? After hearing about this incident, the Uchiha people who were dissatisfied with this incident all gathered together. They were also confused at this time, and could only look at the elders who followed Madara-sama the first time, hoping that they could find a way. Several Uchiha wave old men thought hard and couldn't think of a way to break the situation. When the head of the family accepted the appointment, it was already an unsolvable situation. Shuko mistook me for the Uchiha clan. One of the elders, who was quite old, was so angry that he fainted all of a sudden. Uchiha Setsuna, you guys, take the elders down to rest. Yes. Uchiha Setsuna and several other younger clansmen helped the elder to the medical ninja. Elders, why don't we go against each other? Everyone who was furious because the elder fainted also echoed. Yes, it's the other way around. Go follow Uchiha Madara-sama. You must still be alive. Those untouchables don't deserve to be in the same village as our noble Uchiha. Those elders couldn't make up their minds for a while, but as far as they knew, Qian Shujujian was no longer able to fight anymore, and now it was Qian Shaobanjian that threatened them. As for other ninjas, judging from their cognition in the Warring States period, this is a ninja battle, and they have no reason to interfere in the battle. Looking at the emotions of the people in the audience, their hearts turned and turned. As long as the timing is right, with so many clansmen, it is enough to kill 1,000 hands. For a moment, the thick walls of the shrine could not stop their shouts, and the dust on the beams trembled slightly. Ninja Cat, who had been lurking on the roof of the shrine, moved his ears, jumped off the roof, and ran straight to the patriarch's house. Ever since Uchiha Mirror heard that the elders had a meeting at Nanga Shrine for an afternoon, he felt flustered and restless. Annoyed, he picked up the ninja sword hanging on the wall and walked towards the patriarch's house. There were a lot fewer pedestrians along the way, and there was no usual excitement, which made him speed up his pace unavoidably. Not long after, I came to the gate of Uchiha Sanming. The gate was open, so Kagami walked in directly. As soon as he entered, he saw him holding cat food in his hand and feeding Uchipote's ninja cats. When he heard footsteps, he raised his head slightly and showed a forced smile. Mirror, you're here. On the face that seems to be calm, the three-pointed jade Sharingan in the eyes is spinning wildly, which symbolizes the turbulent waves in its owner's heart at the moment. Just looking at each other, Uchiha Mirror understood what the other party meant, and finally understood where his panic came from, and quickly turned around and prepared to run to the shrine to stop their meeting from proceeding. Suddenly, a hand grabbed him. Uchiha Sanming shook his head and said, it's late, I've already notified Hokage-sama. His voice was extremely hoarse, as if he hadn't touched a drop of water for 3 days. Uchiha Mirror's Sharingan opened directly, and the Urguyu inside was also spinning crazily at this time, and it was extremely unstable. After he saw it, his bitter heart was slightly relieved, because he knew that this was a sign that Sharingan was advancing. Anyway, Uchiha is getting better, isn't he? It is precisely because of this that he knew that he could not stop him, so he silently put his hand down, and just used the blood of these people to help my Uchiha genius grow up. Outside Nanga Shrine, Anbu teams such as Tiger, Bang, and Bull approached quietly, and Danzo was also among them. After the news from the Uchiha Patriarch, they began to take action. At this time, it is best to do it manually. Many people don't bring their equipment with them, which can minimize their own casualties. Soon, a group of people came to the shrine. The Uchihas who were in charge of guarding the doors soon discovered them. Enemy attack. After sending a signal to everyone in the door, he opened Sharingan and formed a seal in his hand. Fire escape. A fireball art 4. After the ninjutsu was released, he pulled out his ninja sword and rushed forward. As expected of the Uchiha, who is known as the Fighting Clan, Danzo couldn't help secretly applauding when he saw an enemy who was far more numerous than them and dared to take the initiative to attack. Who? The Uchiha tribe who were discussing the rebellion plan heard the sound of fierce fighting outside, looked at each other, opened Sharingan and rushed out. After finishing off those 4 people, the Uchihas had already rushed out of the shrine, staring at the masked Onbis with their Sharingan eyes open. Is it Onbi? Senshu Fama really thinks highly of us Uchiha. It's useless to talk too much, let's go, only one party is destined to live today. Several elders lit up their Sanguyu Sharingan and charged forward first, extremely brave. Although they were old, their rich experience in fighting on the battlefield made them stronger than ordinary Junin. Even the elite among ninjas, Anbu and others still dare not be careless in the face of Uchiha. Fire escape. The technique of dragon fire. Fire escape, Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique. Fire escape Fire Dragon Firebomb. One by one, the fire escapes were released crazily in an instant. Fortunately, there were many specialized water escape ninjas in Anbu this time to block them. Water escape. A water array wall *n. When the fire escape ninjutsu hit the water wall one by one, the faces of the Uchihas were extremely ugly. At this time, they also saw that they had been prepared for a long time, and they were waiting for them to get into their pockets, but in the end they foolishly bumped into it. Perhaps out of shame and anger, their killing intent became even stronger. What? They roared and charged directly, picked up the weapons of the dead clansmen and continued to charge. Under their fearless charge, many Anbu ninjas were killed or injured. Seeing his colleagues get injured, the original task was also mixed with grievances. Danzo saw that many Anbu were injured, and sighed secretly. Without his participation, even if Anbu won, he would suffer heavy losses in the end. Holding the knife with one hand, he rushed to the place where the fighting was most intense. Step forward and chop. A phantom shuttled through the battle group. The first Guyu Sharingan couldn't see his speed clearly. The second Guyu Sharingan's dynamic vision kept up, but the body couldn't keep up at all. Only the Uchiha Jonin who drives the Sanguyu can fight him 1 or 2. In an instant, many members of the Uchiha clan died under his sword. After several Uchiha elders saw it, their eyes were tearing apart, and after repelling their enemies, they rushed towards Danzo. Just in time. Not only was Shimura Danzo not afraid, but he rushed forward to meet them. In the fight just now, these old guys killed the most Anbu. As soon as he came into contact with them, he discovered how powerful they were. With the addition of their Sharingan and experience, Danzo played extremely aggrieved. No matter what moves they use, they can make the best response at the first time, as if forming muscle memory. As everyone knows, those Uchiha elders were also taken aback by Danzo's exquisite swordsmanship and endless ninjutsu. Use illusion. As a result, his illusion is not inferior to yours. Let's use the psychic beast, and press it directly with one hand sealing technique. Just imprisoned his knife, but his physical skills are still very strong. As for ninjutsu, that's even more outrageous. When fire done is restraining wind done, he can still suppress their output. They could see clearly that once he was released, it would be a one-sided massacre for the other clansmen, so they had no choice but to rely on numbers and experience to fight him. For a while, the battlefield that had become unbalanced because of Danzo's joining, fell into a stalemate strangely. Danzo Shimura raised his sword to block the taijutsu attacks of the two Uchiha elders, formed a seal with his right hand to blow away the incoming fire escape ninjutsu, and turned around to compete in illusion with another elder. Fighting alone against the four great Uchiha wave elders, even he feels in a hurry. They are not ordinary Junin in the Iron Kingdom, but they were real elite Jnin when they were young. They cooperate with each other tacitly, and with their arrogance, even their own teachers would dare to touch them. If it weren't for the old age and the decline in all aspects of strength, Danzo would not be able to beat them. But of course it is without using the cards. After all, on the bright side, he is just a Konohajime who can fight, slightly. Good chance. A Uchiha who was behind him seized the gap between Danzo and them in the illusion competition. His eyes lit up, and he jumped up and slashed at him. The sharp ninja knife cut through Danzo's clothes and successfully injured the flesh and blood. No, there is a problem. Feeling that the feeling coming from the tip of the knife was wrong, he quickly pulled out the knife, only to see that the cut, Danzo, turned his head and smiled, and turned into a wooden stake. The nerves in his mind that had been tempered by many battlefields were beating wildly, but his old body could no longer make corresponding moves. Chopping steel flash. Suddenly a puff of smoke rose from a small stone under his feet, and a figure holding a knife emerged from it. It is Shimura Danzo. A pitch-black knife pierced Uchiha's body in midair. He looked in disbelief at the blade that passed through his abdomen, and then fell vertically. Sharingan gradually stopped spinning, with remorse and relief in his eyes. At least, Uchiha just killed them. This group of immortals, at least, they left the seeds of revenge. Uchiha Kai. Damn Onbi ninja, we will fight with you. Seeing the death of his old friend for many years, the remaining elders became even more crazy, and there was no trick to every move. They only have one thought at this time, that is to kill this Anbu in front of them and bury him with him. Danzo used the paper drawing technique to sideways his body and avoided the ninja sword attacking. It really is the style of the Uchiha clan. Although each move is much more powerful, it is also prone to flaws. With the addition of knowledge and domineering, his perception is not inferior to Sanguyu's Sharingan. After defending for a period of time, their violent attacks gradually decreased due to physical strength. It's there. One shot flow a swallow return. In just a short moment, the remaining three elders of Uchiha lost their ability to fight. They fell to the ground powerlessly, but their eyes were still fixed on Danzo, as if they wanted to remember him deeply. After finishing off these elders, Danzo didn't stop. He swung his knife, moved his wrist, bent down and aimed at the place with the most enemies, narrowing his eyes slightly. I'll give you a good time. Blast of the wind. The sword energy passed through Danzo's wooden knife and rushed towards the fighting crowd. The wind blade quickly took their lives like the sickle of death, and everyone fell down like straw. Then he also got up and stepped forward, and every time he swung the knife in the fight, he added a dead soul under the knife, and the blood splashed on the mask, dyeing the original white mask into blood, like a demon god in hell. There were fewer and fewer Uchihas standing on the field, and they were forced to gather together. Devil. You are devils. At the end of the fight, all the Anbu ninjas were covered in blood, and they slowly approached the remaining Uchiha ninjas. This silent oppression made people collapse even more. Finally, they couldn't bear it anymore, roared, pulled out their ninja swords, faced the shrine, and killed themselves. Ding. The mission is completed. For some reason, he was not happy at all after the task was completed, silently looking at the wooden knife that was still dripping with blood. The same goes for everyone in Anbu, who silently cleaned up the battlefield, while bandaging their own wounds, while putting the corpse of their companion into a body bag. After Danzo wiped off the blood on the wooden knife, he put it back in the scabbard, turned his head and found that Uchiha mirror appeared here at some point. The Anbu ninjas who had just experienced a fight immediately became alert when they saw the visitor wearing the Uchiha clan emblem. Their nerves were so tense that even the slightest movement could attract their attention. After waving his hand to signal to relax his guard, Shimura Danzo walked towards Uchiha mirror. The Ergodama Sharingan in his eyes had turned into Sangudama at some point, and tears flowed from his scarlet eyes, dripping down his cheeks onto the ground. As a boy who grew up together, he naturally recognized Danzo. Even though he was wearing a mask, he looked at Danzo with his eyes open, and asked with a lonely expression, "Why is there a war? Isn't it good to live in peace?" He patted his shoulder. The eyes under the mask were tired but firm. "Because our war is for peace in the future. But we who are involved in the battle, no matter what the outcome, there is no winner." Danzo walked towards the setting sun, and the dim sunlight seemed to cast a layer of golden light on his body. Even if he was covered in blood, he couldn't block his light. His figure was a little thin, but it made people unconsciously trust him. Inside the Naruto building office, came back. Qianshu Feijian put down the pen he was holding, and stood up. Yes. Danzo and a group of Anbu lowered their heads, obviously not very interested. A day ago, they were people who guarded the village together and could trust their lives, but now they are. "Give me the death list, and give you a week off. It's been a hard day." Tobima, who has experienced this kind of thing, naturally knows that this kind of thing is uncomfortable, but it must be done. "Wait a minute, Danzo, you stay." After everyone left, he walked up to Danzo and gave him a hug. "You didn't do anything wrong, kid." In so many years of getting along, Tobima has long been a master and father relationship for Danzo. In fact, he may not be sent to this operation, but he still let him participate. Because the current Danzo is still a little immature. Although he has shown the temperament of a leader, he still can't wait. In the future, he will face much more pressure than himself. "I have an invincible big brother, does he have one? Only by making yourself strong can you shelter the village from the wind and rain. This kind of strength is not only about strength, but also inner strength. An excellent actor must have a heart of stone. This is especially true for rebels, even if he is an old friend, just like Hashirama killed Uchiha Madara with his own hands. Although I thought so, I still felt a little distressed when I saw Danzo's whole body covered in blood and his lonely expression. After all, this is his most proud disciple, but he is also the shadow of Konoha." Opening the file, remembering those Anbu who died in battle one by one, Senshu wrote a list and handed it to Danzo. "The death pension will be handed over to you. This is also a move to calm your heart. After this time, Anbu under him should be convinced by him." Cough. The master's plan is far-reaching. This year is another harvest year, Shimura Danzo exclaimed looking at the countless fruits on the commodity street. His eyes scanned these fruits, thinking about what seasonal fruits to buy later. Grapes, hawthorns, persimmons and other fruits are displayed one by one in the front, which is simply dazzling. Just picked up a bunch of green grapes and looked at them, and found the whirlpool Mito hovering in front of the pharmacy. "Ah, Mito-sama." Danzo was about to say hello to Uzumaki Mito who was standing in front of her, but she didn't expect her to walk quickly and mutter something incessantly. She has never seen Mito-sama like this. She is not even afraid of tailed beasts in front of her. What else makes her so anxious? Immediately followed curiously. Licorice, Bakelin, Jujube and one more thing. Licorice, Bakelin. As soon as she approached, she heard a series of Chinese medicine names in her mouth. "Oh, yes, it's peony. Scared me to death, Danzo. Why are you so elusive?" It seemed that he remembered something, and suddenly smiled happily. Only then did she find Shimura Danzo next to her. She was taken aback for a moment, then stared at him resentfully with a bitter face. Her clenched fists made a crackling sound, and her red hair fluttered slightly. "It's over. I was scared by you, and I forgot again." Now it was Danzo's turn to be taken aback. He knew how violent this ant-level character in front of him was, and he couldn't beat her, so he quickly said the few Chinese medicinal herbs he heard just now. Licorice, skullcap, jujube and peony. Calm down, Mito-sama. After hearing his words, the fluttering hair slowly fell down, and he turned into that gentle elder again. Oh, it's Danzo, thank you so much, I can't always remember. Heh, it's all right. Danzo took half a step back without a trace, wiped off the cold sweat that broke out just now, and said with a forced smile. Then she saw her walk into the pharmacy of Nara's family, and when she came out, she was holding a few large packets of herbs in her hand, so she asked, Mito-sama, why are you buying these herbs? Someone in the family is sick. She seemed to be in a good mood and said to Danzing, this is not for sick people, it's called Wangqin soup. Scutellaria bailensis soup. What is that? Danzing found that he, who was familiar with various books on external and internal injuries of traditional Chinese medicine, didn't know that there was such a thing. Many of these kinds of medicinal materials are for nourishing blood, but I don't know what the combination is. I secretly made a decision to go to Nara's house later to read medical books on this subject. Uzumaki Mito, who understood the nature of the little guy in front of him, covered his mouth and laughed, and asked, don't think about it, this medicine is for pregnant women. Immediately, Danzing made a big blush, he hesitated for a while and couldn't speak. My family is going to welcome a new member next year, and I'm going to be a grandma too. What? Danzo calculated in his heart, does that mean Tsunade is about to be born? Leo is indeed at this time, don't ask why you know. In the past, he was an out-and-out Tsunade fan, not for any reason, but purely for appreciation. Then Mito-sama, can I go and see? She thought for a while, then nodded. Being able to see the real Tsunadeheim here is a dream come true, although she is still not even a cub. After getting the answer, Danzo also chose what to give at the booth. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, and he walked seriously to a peddler, picked up 2 papayas, weighed them, and happily asked him to wrap them up. Dolls need to be cultivated from an early age. Ignoring the strange eyes from Mito behind him. In the land of the Thousand Hands clan, the morning sun shone down, and the warm sunshine filled the surroundings with vitality. Especially in the Hashirama family, the whole family is immersed in the joy of a new member. Even his cold-faced teacher can see the unconcealed joy in his cold face that has not changed for thousands of years. I am back. Uzumaki Mito slowly opened the door outside, and Danzo also walked in. Oh, it's Danzo, ha ha ha. Senju Hashirama ran out of the house to take the things in his wife's hand, and also spotted Shimura Danzo standing next to her, and greeted him carelessly. Hello, Master Hashirama. For Senjuju's family, Danzo is also a frequent visitor, because his teacher also lives here, and he usually goes to Tobima to learn ninjutsu, and Mito to learn seal art. But now Hashirama can be said to be old and leisurely. When he was Hokage, he would sit in the office every day to open the door, or plant trees. Now that the Land of Fire has such a large forest, he is absolutely indispensable. Aside from other things, the dead forest outside Konoha was created by him with a few tricks from the tree world, and the more beasts in it also added a lot of meat to the whole village. Now, it's a bit too leisurely to just go shopping and go fishing every day, and a younger generation just happens to be able to play with this old urchin. As for his favorite bet, it depends on whether the gentle and beautiful lady next to him will allow it. Under Uzumaki Mito's iron fist, almost every casino that Hashirama goes to will be overturned by her. Although all the major casinos are quite envious of Senju Hashirama, the contemporary fat sheep, but she is too tough. In the end, no casino allowed Hashirama to enter, and Hashirama could only temporarily give up this hobby with tears in his eyes. After walking to the hall, Hashirama excitedly talked with Danzo about what the little guy's name would be in the future. If it's a boy, I think the names Tai Dan, Go Zi, and Naoshu are all good names. If it's a granddaughter, it's Tsunade. Iron Egg, Guzi, Danzing didn't know how to complain for a while. Unexpectedly, when Zujian heard him say these 2 names, he whispered excitedly as if he had met a confidant. Yes, these 2 names are very good. I didn't come up with such ugly names as Naoki and Tsunade, yes. Carefully turning her head and looking around, she said, it was Mito who thought of it, and she also said that my name was ugly. How is that possible? She must be out of jealousy. Looking at the light of wisdom flashing in Hashirama's eyes, he couldn't help but think of the magical species in the cold north. I sweated for the unborn Tsunade and Naoki, but fortunately they have a reliable grandma. Otherwise, for Hashirama, who has the same naming ability as Namikaze Minato, those two dolls will pull out his oxygen tube when he grows up. Hurry up, Danzo. Senju Tobarama jumped down from the Hokage building with Shimura Danzo and galloped on the eaves. The two guys who were considered extremely fast in the ninja world felt that they were not fast enough for the first time. Danzo, teacher, I will take a step first, you can run slowly. In desperation, Qianshu Feijian directly used the Flying Thunder God technique, and his figure shuttled around the place where he left the technique. After a while, he disappeared from Danzo's sight. I'm so envious of this kind of rush tool. It would be great if I could learn it, but unfortunately, I don't have the talent for space ninjutsu. My teacher has taught me, but I just can't learn it. If I learn it, I will directly create a courier company to ensure that it arrives in seconds. As for the name, just call it anywhere. Tokaima probably didn't know that his precious apprentice wanted to learn his extremely proud S-rank ninjutsu. Otherwise, Danzo should make up for a perfect childhood. It's just a little faster. Teacher, you have Flying Thunder God, and I have Toothless Boy. Bite your fingers and press against the roof. Spiritualism. Before he had time to say anything, he sat on Toothless Boy and set off. With the flapping of its wings, two miniature hurricanes took shape instantly and shot straight into the sky. Target, Konoha Hospital. Danzo grabbed Toothless and ordered. Ow. After a promise, it went as fast as it could, and arrived at Qianshubajian almost in tandem. After arriving, I put it back to rest, jumped down from the sky at a height of 5 meters, and walked slowly towards the hospital gate. It is better to slow down in the hospital. At this time, a couple also came out of the hospital slowly, and it seemed that his wife was pregnant, and the pregnancy was not short. The man took care of his pregnant wife carefully, talking and laughing with her. Husband, the baby is very healthy. It would be nice if it was a girl. Yeah. I've already thought about the baby's name. How about calling it Orochimaru? The man knelt down at the door, put his ear on her stomach, and said with a smirk. If it's a boy, dress him up as a girl. She also said with a happy face, okay, okay. The man helped his wife down the stairs, and the wife showed a motherly smile and stroked her belly, as if talking to a child who was about to come into this world. A very nice name, Oshimaru. Did you hear that? This is the name your father gave you. The moment Danzo entered the hospital, he vaguely heard the name of Orochimaru, and subconsciously turned his head to look at her stomach. It seems that Orochimaru's original parents are very good. Before I had time to do anything, I heard my teacher urging, Danzo, it's on the 2nd floor, remember to come up later. Now Shimura Danzo's name is considered well-known in Konoha, and when he heard someone calling his name, the husband and wife showed the expressions of fanboys and girls as if they had met idols. Is it Danzo-sama? Ah. Baby, did you see it? I actually saw a living Danzo-sama. Compared with his wife, the man was more restrained, but he also held Danzo's hand full of excitement. Now he is the first genius since Konoha established the village. Both his parents died. With his own efforts, he was promoted to Jonin at the age of 15. Many young people in Konoha have regarded him as their idol. Of course, I don't know if there is any secret help in this. He didn't know that he was still the idol of Orochimaru's parents, so he touched his head with the other hand embarrassingly. But why do I always feel that her words are strange? After giving them their contact information and address, we said goodbye to them and went to the 2nd floor. After all, today's protagonist is our little Tsunade. If only our Orochimaru could become a powerful ninja like Danzo-sama. The woman murmured as she watched Danzo's retreating figure. The man gently hugged her into his arms, and said softly, we just want him to be safe and happy, and let him decide what to do in the future. As soon as Danzo came outside the operating room, he saw a large group of people waiting anxiously, standing or standing, looking at the closed operating door from time to time. In terms of the strength of the people present, an operation door can't stop their perception, but this is just that care makes chaos. When Tomono saw Danzo coming, he waved to him and signaled him to sit down. Time passed bit by bit, and finally, the lights in the operating room dimmed. Click, the door was pushed open from the inside out. A group of medical staff who came out had smiles on their tired faces. "Doctor, how's it going? Is everything going well?" Hashirama stepped forward all of a sudden, and said to them anxiously. They looked at each other, pulled off their masks, and said with a smile, "Everything is going well, mother and daughter are safe." Seeing another new life come to this world safely in their hands, they are also full of a sense of accomplishment, which is also the meaning of their clothes. Health is all about life. A nurse at the back came out gently holding the baby. Her little face was red and wrinkled, she hadn't opened her eyes yet, and she was crying loudly. After leaving 2 people to follow the nurse, the others went in to take care of Mercer Qianshu, who was still in the operating room. Hashirama and Danzo followed behind the nurse, like 2 bodyguards, escorting the elder and the younger to Tsunade's designated nursery. Such a careful look caused the nurse holding Tsunade's hand to roll her eyes. Why are these 2 guys who are well known in the ninja world so nervous? He couldn't help saying, "Master Hokage, Lord Danzo, now this place is handed over to us nurses, you just wait outside." As a result, there were only the 2 of them staring at each other outside the door. "Hashirama-sama, Shao Danzo, why are you so nervous?" "No, I don't." *2 with a kimbo between Senshuju, he looked down at Danzo condescendingly, and said with disdainful eyes, "I'm nervous. It's a joke in the world. This old man comes and goes in the wind and rain. He has gone through countless battles. The final battle of Dinkan was even more earth-shattering. There was a lot of chatting and laughing at the 5 Shadows meeting. How could he be nervous? She must be talking about you." Danzo used moon steps to raise himself a little higher than Hashirama, imitating him, and smiled with a crooked Dragon King expression. "I, Shimura Danzo, who became famous at a young age, has gone through 2 S-level missions and dozens of A-level missions. I can go to Anbu to kill enemies, and I can teach in schools. How can I be nervous? I'm talking about you." For a while, no one was convinced. Click. The nurse came out of the nursery, and the 2 of them immediately changed their faces, and they leaned together and asked about various things. After seeing that there was nothing to do, they both let out a sigh of relief. They looked at each other contemptuously, as if blaming them for not having the demeanor that a strong man should have. Then the 2 guys put their buttocks up and lay on the window of the nursery, looking at the future little princess Konoha with fascination. Even moving a finger can cause the 2 of them to cheer. It can only be said that fortunately the room is soundproof enough. "Looks like it's here." A couple in thin and shabby clothes looked at the note in their hands. After confirming that this was the location, the man stepped forward and gently put down the box in his hand. Reluctantly, he took one last look, and after clenching his teeth, the man pulled his crying wife to leave, but he couldn't move for a while, and he held her face helplessly, and 2 pairs of equally haggard eyes met together. He said in a deep voice, "It's really not good for the child to follow us 2 sick ghosts. You don't think that our child will not have enough food and clothing all day long in the future, right?" She covered her mouth and wept silently, and the man was finally able to pull her away. After confirming the distance, they picked up a small stone, threw it at the door with all their strength, and then ran away as fast as they could. I really don't know how they can explode at such a speed with such a thin body. The stone hit the gate with a certain arc, and there was a lot of noise between the impacts. Knock knock. "I'm coming. Has anyone come so soon? There are still a few days before the new year." After mistaking it for a knock on the door, Danzo jumped off the plum blossom pile he had erected in the backyard. After slapping off the falling snowflakes, I picked up the towel placed next to the stove to wipe off the sweat from training, put on the cotton shoes, and walked across the house, thump thump thump. "Hello." "Yes." After opening the courtyard door, I didn't see anyone outside. I thought it was a child's prank, and when I was about to close the courtyard door again, I suddenly found a cardboard box on the ground. Curiosity drove him to pick it up, and after sweeping off a little snow accumulated on it, he carried it back home. It still feels a little heavy to hold, and I don't know what it could be. A doubt flashed in my heart, and I quickly went to the room, looked around, and put the box on the table. I opened the carton little by little with anticipation, and what came into view was, a white-haired kid. The thin and small body lay on a pile of old but clean clothes, sucking his fingers with his mouth, and after seeing the sun, he opened his eyes and looked at Danzo with a grin. Picking up the paper on his body, there were crooked characters written on it, and there were many typos, and Danzo barely recognized it. The general idea is that I have a serious illness. I guess I can't survive this winter, and I can't afford to raise a baby, so I ask a kind person to take care of it. If it doesn't work, give him to another good family. Putting down the half-read note, he rushed out of the door. The snow covered the door, and the footsteps he left just now were covered by the sudden increase of snow, and they could no longer be seen. In desperation, I picked up the note again and read it. In addition to the instructions and precautions for the baby, the bottom line is, if possible, I hope this child's name can be called Zhi Nai. Danzo touched his head, suddenly a little dizzy by the heavy news. That is to say, in just half a year, I have seen the cub status of the future, pornography, gambling and drug trio. Now there is another one staying at my house, and I might still be his godfather? No, I haven't held a girl's little hand yet, just reluctantly recognize a younger brother. He stood up and gently carried him out of the box. Fortunately, he had learned how to hold Tsunade in the past few months, otherwise he really couldn't handle it. Anyway, let's discuss it with Tobirama-sensei first, and also bring some baby supplies along. Go to the yard and summon Toothless Boy. Try to rush there as quickly as possible, otherwise the kid will be frozen to death. After Toothless came out, he sniffed it with his nose, and was about to use his big tongue to wash Danzo's face. When he saw his master holding a child in his hand, he froze in place. Could it be that a human cub popped out while he was taking a nap? This is wrong. Where did the four-legged gold-swallowing beast come from? Okay, don't think about it. The target, the land of the thousand hands. Danzo jumped, straddled Toothless, and carefully wrapped Jiraiya with light blue chakra to prevent him from being hurt by the air pressure caused by the extreme speed. It shook its big head, took off, and shot straight into the sky at a nearly vertical angle. At its current speed, such a distance would only take a few minutes. Just happened to meet Higama, who was going home outside the original Hokage mansion. Teacher. He jumped down from midair with a loud cry, and Toothless flew in with ease. He had already become familiar with the Hashirama family after coming so many times, and after getting Danzo's permission, he let the whole family experience the excitement of flying in the sky. As soon as Qianshu Feijian looked up, he happened to see Danzo. Oh, it's Danzo, what's the matter? After landing, he told him the ins and outs of the whole thing. After a moment of contemplation, he took the baby in Danzo's hand, and the two walked in together. Feijian, you're here. Senshu Zujian happened to be teasing Toothless with a fish. After seeing the baby in his younger brother's hand, he opened his mouth wide, and the fish in his hand fell out of his hand, just in time for Toothless to get his wish. But he couldn't care less about it now. He raised a hand, stretched out his index finger, pointed at Jiraiya in disbelief, and said, Feijian, is this your child? There was a black line on Tobirama's face, and he was about to explain, but was interrupted by him. Hashirama turned his back, looked at the sky seriously, and analyzed with a penetrating gaze. Yes, all white hair. It must be your child. No need to explain. I understand why the child's mother didn't come together, right? Bang. His fingers were clenched together like a fist. The bones were clenched so loudly, and the veins on his arms popped out one after another. MD, brother bastard, can you listen to me carefully? What? Zhu Jian was hit on the head all of a sudden, and a steaming bun protruded from his head. Afterwards, he looked at Danzo's head coldly, as if he was picking where to strike. Danzo smiled foolishly, while quietly taking half a step back to the side. And Toothless Boy has shrunk into a corner, silently gnawing on his dried fish. No make no die with his small body, he is not as resistant to beating as Hashirama. Fortunately, my teacher still loves his apprentices. After warning Danzo with his eyes, Tobirama walked into the room with his legs. After entering the house, Uzumaki Mito greeted Danzo and the others while feeding Tsunade with a baby bottle. It can only be said that it is worthy of being a couple. After seeing Tobima holding Jiraiya, she also showed the same smile as Hashirama. The blue veins on the forehead popped out again, and after taking a deep breath, he told the ins and outs of the incident. At this time, everyone can only feel pity for Zhi Nai, and such a small child is alone. Especially Mito, who was holding the child, felt the deepest at this time, and she couldn't help sighing when she thought of Danzo's previous situation like this. After discussing for a long time, I still decided to respect the choice of the child's parents and let Danzo take care of the child. They will help out and let Tsunade have a playmate of the same age, which is not bad. However, after this incident, Danzo proposed to Tobirama to build a Konoha orphanage to raise these children who became orphans for various reasons, which won him the support of a large number of villagers, but it is a later story. Thanks to Shimura Danzo's identity, it is still possible to bring someone into the village, let alone such a young child. Although there are certain inspection procedures, it is more of a formality. In the words of the two big men behind him, if even Shimura Danzo is not good for the village, then the whole village will have no one to trust. This is the result of his hard work, the benefit of an excellent successor of the Will of Fire. Even the person who hates Danzo the most in Konoha now doesn't doubt that he has a little half-hearted heart for the village. That's right. Why is it so difficult to take care of children? I looked at the diaper and bottle in my hand and felt that I couldn't do anything. The kid in front of him was still grinning. Danzo gave him a vicious look, but he smiled even more happily. Forget it. Forget it. I can't afford to offend you, I'll shake people. Danzo brand psychic art. Whirlpool Mito. He threw away the diaper and bottle in his hand, and ran directly to the thousand hands. Cough. Back then, a wooden knife was cut from the east gate of the bandit village to the west, without blinking an eye. I never thought that I would be messed up by this little guy. The world is impermanent. You, children can't do this. Uzumaki Mito skillfully helped Xiao Ziraya put on the diaper, then stood up, went to make milk powder, and scolded Danzo at the same time. Yeah, yip. Tsunade beside him lay on his crib with his hands on his side, tilting his head. Seeing him coming, he grinned and uttered an indistinct, baby, language, and waved his little hand with a smile. Danzo also saw Tsunade, walked up to her with ease, picked her up, and kept teasing her. Hey, Danzo is here. After returning from the door, Hashirama first greeted Danzo, and then tiptoedly took out two furry dice toys and hung them above Tsunade's bed. It immediately attracted her full attention, and the little hand kept waving towards that side. No way, this child's interest was really cultivated since childhood. By the way, will you really not be beaten to death by your wife like this? Danzo turned his head and looked at it as if he felt something, and was taken aback immediately. After Uzumaki Mito put Kojiraya down, his blood-red hair danced around, and he looked at Senju Hashirama with a man-eating gaze. Husband, you don't remember to hit you, you remember to eat, and you brought 2 more dice, you think I won't hit you because you are fluffy, don't you? Hashirama stepped back half a step calmly, and said in a strong tone, I am cultivating her hobbies. If I can't become the god of gamblers, maybe she can. The more he said a word, the quieter his voice was, his face was calm, but his legs were trembling uncontrollably. God of gamblers. Danzo standing next to him thought of the big fat sheep, who was chased and intercepted by the all-ninja casino in the future. To make Tsunade a gambler, the difficulty is about the same as Highway's saving his mother. The first generation of adults, your road is narrow. What? A few screams interrupted Danzo's thoughts, and Mito had already dragged Hashirama to the yard for education of love. He hugged Xiaozuna and retreated to a safe area calmly. All I can say is, Lord Hashirama is super brave, even braver than Brother Jia. Now he hangs the hammer directly, literally hangs the hammer. Blindfolding the eyes of 2 children who are watching with gusto with the palm of your hand, this scene is too cruel, and it is not worth studying. Mito-sama in berserk form should be unstoppable now, at least he is a strong player in the cage class. Danzo looked at his little arms and legs, wondering when he would be able to set foot in this field. Heavens and Worlds Mission System Host, Danzo Shimura. Chakra. Wind, 8.9 calories, Strength, Jonin points, 225000. Bloodline. One Piece World Family D Inheritance, Wind Swordsman Yasuo, Proficient. Skills. 1 Sword Style Tiger Hunting, Expert. 1 Sword Style Swallow Return, Elite. 3 Body Technique, Expert. Wind escape great breakthrough, expert. Wind escape wind slicing, expert. Vacuum series, elite. Shen Feng Wying, proficient. 3-color domineering, elite. Illusion, elite. Sealing technique, expert. Navy 6 forms, elite. Return of life, expert. Items: indestructible wooden knife, some fine steel kumai, some military food pills, some detonating charms, sombra mask, healing potion, Zhuge Liang's feather fan, Hulk's underwear, Gandalf's wand. Task: raise Zhi Nai to grow up. Mission description: do you have the heart to let the pornography, gambling and drugs remain only gambling and drugs? Mission reward: the full volume of Intimate Heaven. Hey, I, Danzo Shimura, am full of righteousness. How could I have the heart to leave a baby alone? System: you underestimate me. Receive the reward. But good deeds must be rewarded. Otherwise there will be fewer and fewer good people in the ninja world. System: what do you think? Slowly, the screams in the yard stopped. Wait a minute, Hashirama won't be GG. Danzing hurried over and wanted to visit. How to say, he should dissuade him a little bit. As for whether he can be persuaded or not, it is none of his business. Hey, don't fight anymore. As soon as the words fell, Uzumaki Mito walked in with a smile on his face. Behind him, Hashirama opened his head like a big Buddha. Small bags were stacked one by one in a regular manner, and his face became bruised and swollen. One thing lowers one thing. Hashirama hangs and beats the ninja world, and Mito hangs and beats the ninja world. In conversion, in the peak period, Konoha, I have 3 people who hang and beat the ninja world, and a certain dance king is the weakest. It's just that it's not true that the inspiration of Qianshu comes from the self who was hammered, right? This is really a trick that comes from life. The addition of one person to the family has not changed much in Danzo's life. I either go to Konoha Academy or Onbi every day, and on the rest day, I run to the training ground to practice by myself, and as for Zurai, I entrust it to the first Hokage and the others. However, in the face of Danzo's gradual improvement in knowledge and arrogance, Hashirama's vitality seems to be fading a little bit, which caused him a great sense of crisis. You must know that the important factor for the outbreak of the First World War in the ninja world was Senju Bashirama. If he was here, no one in the world would dare to show his teeth to Konoha. Even if he was beaten, he would have to smash his teeth and swallow them in his stomach. Just like before Danzo killed Yan Yin in the Iron Country, and Lei Yin's 4 special Junin, they all regarded this incident as never happened. Of course, according to the news from Anbu spies, the 2 shadows lost their temper in the office that day. In the black market, the amount of reward offered by Shimura Danzo has also been increased a lot. There are 3 Sarutobi Asma, referred to as Sanama for short. A group of people in night suits quickly shuttled through Konoha and rushed out of the village. Danzo suddenly fell in front of them wearing a mask like a ghost. Stop. You have violated the peace treaty of the 5 Cages Convention, please stop immediately. A group of people were forced to stop. Hirazaru Sarutobi followed them not far behind, and the 2 blocked them one after the other. Evil ghost. What are you talking about with them? Stop or die. He could clearly see that the person in front of him was wearing a ghost mask, his long black hair was tied into a ponytail, and he was carrying an invisible wooden knife. Damn it. It's Konoha's Anbu evil spirit. The 3 of you will stay behind with me, and the 2 will break through separately. Faced with such a situation, the captain of the 6 couldn't help being anxious, forced himself to calmly order, and then rushed towards Danzo with a kunai in his hand. Just get closer to him and get closer. Hirazaru Sarutobi watched a person rush towards Danzo from a distance. I thought to myself, it's really dead, that guy is a monster. Thinking of the horror of Danzo, I couldn't help but shiver. Ha ha ha, you are too arrogant, go to hell. The spy captain detonated the detonating charm hidden on his body with madness in his eyes. Bang bang bang. The smoke filled the place where Danzo was originally standing. The captain succeeded, you run, we stop the ninja behind. The remaining 5 stood up to 3 of them, with determination in their eyes, standing in front of Hirazaru Sarutobi. Hi. The remaining 2 people ran into the smoke in an instant, planning to run away. Slapped. Since you resist law enforcement, you can't blame me. A wooden knife protruded from the smoke and cut one of the spies in half. The extreme speed forced the 4 spies to stand together. Toothless, fire-breathing. Only then did the 4 realize that there was always a psychic beast above their heads. Wow. Wind escapade vacuumed jade. The longing for life flashed in their eyes, and they crazily mobilized their chakras in an attempt to fight trapped beasts. Earth Dungeon. Earth Barrier 4 Danzo's ninjutsu easily broke through their ninjutsu, and Toothless Boy's flame directly roasted them until they were charred on the outside and tender on the inside. Plus 1500 points. Knight. Why didn't you leave me one? Hirazaru Sarutobi said, dissatisfied. Danzo scratched his head. Next time, definitely next time. Next time again. He looked helplessly at Danzo, and could only silently go forward to clean the battlefield. They are not weak. There is 1 special JNIN in Yanyan village and 5 Zhongnin. That's not my match against Toothless Boy. The recent tasks are really profitable. 1000 points, 500 points. Toothless flew down, and nodded approvingly when he heard Danzo's words. Knight. Your Toothless Boy is so strong, he should be as strong as a Jonin. Hirazaru Sarutobi looked at Toothless with envy. Didn't your family arrange an ape demon for you? Although the ape demon is good, it can't fly. Ha ha ha. The ape demon is not bad, and King Kong is not bad. Have you found anything? It really is. He found a rock-concealed forehead from a spy. Such an obvious frame-up can basically be ruled out as Iwagakushi. Sarutobi Hirazan judged. Not necessarily. Show it to the teacher. Danzo took the forehead and commented. Cough. Since the first generation of adults fell ill, the number of spies in other villages has obviously increased. It's troublesome. Forget it. Go back to Anbu. After talking for a while, the 2 ran towards the Hokage building. Teacher Phagian, all the spies have been killed, and this was found from them. Ha. Yanin's forehead protection? Now there are all spies from the 4 hidden villages. Tobirama looked at the forehead guards of the other 3 ninja villages on the table and smiled angrily, then looked at the 2 of them. The recent tasks have been a lot heavier. Thank you for your hard work. Go back and rest. Yes. Danzo walked out of the office, took off the mask on his face, and let out a foul breath. Compared with the original mask, there is an extra line of numbers inside. That's right, he is now an editor. After completing the task, they no longer hide their identities. Danzo, get ready. There are more and more spies recently, and this ninja world is about to become chaotic. Someone took off the ape mask, revealing a young face. Re-Zon, don't die in the future, or I will take better care of your wife and children. Hirazaru Sarutobi was a little moved in the first half of the sentence, but when he heard the second half of the sentence, he immediately exploded. His expression was exactly the same as the ape mask he was wearing. Fart. I won't die if you die. By the way, why don't you find a girlfriend? Do you know how many girls like you? For Danzo's handsome face, he is really jealous and envious. The older he grows, the more handsome he becomes, and he directly fills up the favorability of all the women in the village. After looking at the back, he found no one and said quietly, "You don't want to be a single dog like the teacher, do you?" I can hear it. Water escapade. A water bomb. A flood of water directly rushed Hirazaru Sarutobi to the Hokage building. Monkey. Write a word report and hand it in tomorrow. Danzo stood upstairs and looked at him with a smile. Teacher, don't. Hirazaru Sarutobi yelled upstairs with a sad face. Danzo jumped down, patted him on the shoulder, and walked back home slowly. When I got home, I went into the bathroom to wash my face, and looked at the handsome face in the mirror, with a gentle smile on it all the year round. It's been so many years in a blink of an eye, and the original kid has grown into a young man. These years have witnessed many things, such as Uchiha Madara's defection, the Battle of the Valley of the End. Senshubema became the second generation of Hokage. I also drew a lot of prizes, and my strength has improved a lot. I even got no less than 71 charm fruits. I abruptly raised my charm from 91 to, it can be said that I am no longer inferior to my teacher in terms of appearance. Oh, by the way, I also adopted a kid, so I should be asleep now. As for what Sunshine said, women will only affect the speed at which I draw my sword. After washing up, he climbed up to the roof of his house lightly. Looking at the sky full of stars, I couldn't help but be fascinated. If there are no accidents, Mr. Hashirama should have died this year, and because of his own intervention, Konoha has developed much better than the original time and space. The ninja school appeared earlier, and because he brought the management theory from his previous life, Konoha's various shops also have more or less his own shadow. It can be said that for the current Konoha youth ninja generation, Danzo is a well-deserved leader in terms of strength and influence. Now Konoha has not only strengthened its logistics strength, but also increased the number of ninjas a lot. I have done my best without affecting the big event. I hope Konoha can survive this crisis. The wooden knife with him made a sound, as if to comfort Danzo. Hey, you're right, if you encounter an enemy, just cut it directly. The current wooden sword has begun to evolve in the direction of the black sword under the refinement of the armed color domineering, and even has wisdom due to time and space, although it is still very weak. Danzo stood up from the roof and stretched. Go to sleep, whoever thinks of Konoha, I want his head. A trace of bloodthirsty flashed across the peaceful eyes, and turned into a gentle look in a blink of an eye. Hello, Mr. First Generation. Danzo went to Hashirama's house on duty as usual. Hey, it's Danzo, it's your turn to be on duty today. Hashirama still looked full of energy. No one would have thought that such a god would die this year. Jump on the beam to start the day's duty. Uzumaki Mito walked in holding Tsunade in one hand and fruit in the other. As if aware of something, he raised his head to look at the beam. Danzo greeted her with a smile. She really deserves to be a strong woman who walked from the Warring States period with Master Hashirama. She has really strong perception, and Kagura with swirling blood is so enviable. Grandma, what are you looking at? The young Tsunade shook Mito's hand. She touched Tsunade's head and smiled kindly. It's nothing. Old man, come to eat some fruit. Thank you, wife. Hashirama trotted over to take the fruit from Mito's hand. Grandfather, let's gamble. Tsunade broke away from Mito's hand, and ran to him with 2 dice. Hashirama picked up Tsunade and said with a smile, okay, Xiaoli. Mito smiled and watched the interaction between grandparents and grandparents. What's the bet? Tsunade looked left and right. Just bet on your necklace, grandfather. Okay, grandfather, I have never lost to Xiaoli. After hearing this, Zhu Jian was stunned for a moment, and then said confidently. Danzo, who was hiding in the beam of the room, couldn't help complaining. Sure enough, the more you cook, the more you love to play. Hashirama's gambling skills are rare in history. I didn't expect Tsunade to be better than her. Hashirama shook the dice and buckled them on the table. At 11 o'clock, Xiaoli, you were doomed. He squinted at Tsunade, extremely proud. Not necessarily, grandfather. Tsunade puffed up his face, picked up the dice and shook it unconvinced. Bang. A buckle on the table. The cup was opened little by little, and when he saw the final count, Tsunade jumped happily on the table, put his waist in and laughed. Ha ha ha. 12 o'clock. Grandpa, you lost. The necklace is mine now. He froze for a moment, then touched his head in disbelief, sighed helplessly, and said to her again with a smile. It turned out to be Xiaoli who won. It's rare and rare. This is the first time you have won me. He took the necklace from his neck and handed it to Tsunade, who was bouncing around. I didn't expect Tsunade to win. Wait for Tsunade to win. Just today. Thinking of this, Danzo lost his footing and fell from the beam. He covered his head and got up from the ground, saying hello awkwardly. Hashira-sama, Mito-sama, and Tsunade, hello. The Hashirama couple responded with a smile. She trotted forward and hugged Danzo, asking suspiciously. Brother Danzing, when did you come to my house? Come and play with me. I'm sorry Xiaoli, I can't play with you today. Danzo put down Tsunade's hand, tried his best to pretend to be relaxed, but said to Hashirama with extremely solemn eyes. Looking at his eyes, Hashirama, who was originally grinning, froze, and said to Tsunade, Suna, you go out first. She nodded ignorantly, and Mito took her hand and walked out. Eat fruit. He handed the fruit to Danzo, his expression still so relaxed, as if nothing happened. He ate it tastelessly. Master Hashirama, your body. Yes, his body is almost unable to hold on. Mito opened the door, walked in, sat beside Hashirama, and stared at him steadfastly. Ha ha ha. I didn't expect you to know. I originally wanted to keep you from knowing. He turned his head away, not daring to look into the sad eyes of his beloved, and touched the back of his head, hiding it with a smile. Mito looked at Hashirama for a long time, then suddenly laughed. Come with me for the last spring. He turned his head, seemed to be inconceivably surprised for a while, smiled from the bottom of his heart and said, okay. They only had each other in their eyes at this moment. Danzo retreated silently, not disturbing their last time together. In Hokage's office. After listening to Danzo's report, the room was quiet for a long time before Toikama replied lightly, I see. It's just that the hand that was originally handling government affairs paused for a moment, and then the hand holding the pen trembled slightly. But when he looked at the government affairs that were being dealt with, the Union squad pretended to be robbers and harassed the border, the pen in his hand moved firmly again. After a while, hand over the government affairs and files that have just been processed to Danzing. Danzo, after this matter is over, your team will go to the border to clean up some bugs, be careful, don't get bitten. Yes. Looking at the records in the file, the hand holding the knife tightened slightly. After Danzo left, Tobirama stood up, walked to the window and looked at the beautiful Konoha village. His mind gradually drifted away and his eyes were confused. Brother, if you leave, you will not be far from the ninja world chaos. The wind blew into the room, as if it brought sand and dust to his eyes. The eye circles were reddish, but he didn't shed tears. When looking at the young children playing on the street, the pedestrians saying hello to each other, and the old people enjoying the shade under the trees, their confused eyes became firm again. Who dares to ruin Big Brother's hard work? I want him to regret coming to this world. This was built by their brothers for more than 10 years. The sun sets in the west. Danzo walked out of the Sarutobi clan. The last person has been notified, and things are ready. Next. Walking slowly on the street. Brother Danzo, I have fresh fish here, take one. Yo, it's Xiao Danzo. While rejecting their kindness, Danzo greeted them politely with a forced smile. At this time, an aunt with a warm smile on her face came forward. Danzo, you are old too. What do you think of my daughter? Looking at the shy and rich beauty behind her, Danzo took a slight step back with an awkward yet polite smile. Looking at the aunts behind who were about to surround him, Danzo broke out in a cold sweat, and felt that this was even more terrifying than the feeling he had when he met a Jonin when he was a Chunin. Auntie, I'm sorry, I have something to do at home, so I'm leaving first. Turning around and fleeing in one go, not proficient. He ran to the vicinity of the Thousand Hands clan in a flash, leaned on a big tree, and gasped for breath. Huh, I finally got rid of it. The teacher should have come here like this. Suddenly, a burst of crying was heard. Woo. Looking for the sound, I saw a little blonde-haired loli squatting on the ground crying. Suna. Why are you here alone? Brother Tuantanzo, Uncle Sarutobi, he said that grandfather died, wow. Danzo hugged Tsunade with one hand and wiped away her tears. Let's go. Let's go see your grandfather for the last time together. Good. The two walked to Hashirama's house holding big hands and small hands. There are already many people waiting there, all the patriarchs of their respective families. Everyone has a solemn face, because they know that the big tree protecting Konoha will collapse today, and they must rely on themselves to face the jackals. At this time, they must not show even a little cowardice. The door opened slowly. Mito-sama, your face? The original beautiful woman turned into a wrinkled old woman after a day. Fei Jian frowned slightly. Sister-in-law, have you unlocked your yin sealing technique? She stroked her face with the same wrinkled hands. He's gone. It's useless for me to keep this face. Hey, come in. Get out of the way so that everyone can pass. People walked in like a pilgrimage, for fear of disturbing every plant and tree here. Danzo was about to step over the threshold. Mito suddenly called him from behind. Huh? He turned around in surprise. Thank you. Mito bowed to him. Danzo took a step back and avoided her salute. Master Mito, what is this for? No, if you don't untie his knot today, he won't be happy even if he leaves. He and I are very happy today, Mito said with a smile while crying. He took out a scroll from his sleeve and handed it to Danzo. This is just a thank you gift. After handing it to him, she walked in again. She wanted to spend more time with Zujian, and she would never see her again. Hashirama's body was placed in the lobby, with a natural expression and a smile on his face. If it wasn't for his chest not rising and falling, people would have thought he was just asleep. There is a bunch of lilies blooming brilliantly on the body, all blooming and full of vitality. As a descendant of the first generation of Hokage, I express regret for the death of Hokage. The second generation of Raikage choked up at the funeral and said that backlog for a long time. Everyone in the audience is crying, but it's not certain how much truth there is in it. My condolences, ma'am. Shadow from other villages said to Mito with tears. Looks pretty sad, if you ignore their almost unbearable smiles. Funerals are carried out step by step. With the burial of Hashirama's body, the eyes of the jackals became more and more excited. Only then did they truly confirm that the invincible ninja god was dead. Come, drink. In the guest house prepared by Konoha for foreign guests, the four shadows got together. Why did you say that the first Hokage died? Raikage grabbed a handful of beans and threw them into his mouth, chewing hard. Toying sipped his wine and echoed, yes, what a pity. Not yet 50 years old, Mizukage said with a sad face. Feng Ying ate and drank silently. The four of them suddenly looked at each other and laughed in unison, ha ha ha. When the first generation was alive, it was like a mountain pressing down on them tightly, not daring to have a little bit of resistance. Now that he is dead, enjoy yourself. It's time to harvest the fat of Konoha. Know yourself and the enemy, and you will never be imperiled in 100 battles. First of all, we must understand the strength of Konoha. The Konoha delegation they led had this idea. Are we being too arrogant? Be careful that the walls have ears. Toying put down his wineglass, raised his head and said worriedly. Raikage waved his hand and said in a disdainful tone, I'm afraid, if the first Hokage was around, I'd still be afraid of him. Now that he's gone, we'll be leaving tomorrow. What's more, we have 4 cages and 20 elite guards here. If we are in a hurry, let's just flip the table. That's right, we can flatten Konoha, so what are we afraid of? Kazekage, do you think so? Mizukage picked up the wineglass and shook it, then drank it down, then looked at Kazekage as if inadvertently. Hearing Mizukage's words, the other 2 shadows also looked at Funkage playfully. The guards brought by Feng Ying looked at them vigilantly. The atmosphere froze in an instant. Feng Ying looked at them without changing his face. What are you looking at me for? You are a grasshopper on the same rope. Come, drink and drink. Ha ha ha, drink. You won't go home if you don't get drunk tonight. The atmosphere became lively again, and the toasts were intertwined, so it was very lively. In a hidden dark corner, a Konoha ninja quietly recorded their discussion. Today's matter must be reported to the captain. Yuguang Wufeng cast blood-stained limit Tuden to hide his figure, and then turned around and ran towards the Anbu building. But at this moment, a hoarse voice came. There is a little mouse outside the door, you clean him up. Yes. The Li Ying guards strode forward after hearing this. The other 3 Ying were silent. Lei Ying snorted coldly seeing them like this. Moonlight Wufeng stopped when he heard the sound, and looked in the direction of the sound, only to see 2 weird men with horns on their heads looking at him intently. He was so scared that he broke into a cold sweat and ran away. These 2 people had met during the day, and they were Raikage's shadow guards. He, a special Genin, would never be able to beat them. This is Konoha, clean him up as soon as possible, we are guests after all. Don't worry. Raikage-sama. The 2 looked at each other, and chased after him at a speed far exceeding that of moonlight and no wind. The 3 figures rushed at an extremely fast speed, but it was obvious that the gap between them was getting smaller and smaller. Damn it, I'm about to be caught up. Is this the body training technique of Lian village? One hand off. His thigh was hit, and his whole body left a mark more than 10 meters away on the ground with inertia. Moonlight Wufeng struggled to get up, covering the punctured part of his thigh with one hand, and defended them with a ninja sword in the other hand. Little mouse, isn't it good at running? Why don't you run? Golden Horn and Silver Horn watched the Onbi ninja struggling in front of him playfully. Yinzhao broke through his defense in an instant, and kicked him until he was powerless to resist. Yuguang Wufeng could only hold his chest in despair, and yelled at them frantically. This is Konoha. Even if the first-generation master dies, there will still be Higama-sama, Mito-sama, and the new generation will also have strong men like Danzo-sama. Konoha will not lose to bastards like you. Is this your last words? It's boring. Then let me die. One of Jin Zhao's fingers aimed at his chest and pressed down little by little. It's you who are boring. Armed color hardening a slashing steel flash. A ray of bright saber slashed towards Jin Zhao from top to bottom. At the critical moment, Jin Zhao quickly retreated to defend, and Yin Zhao also stepped forward to help. At the moment of the fight, the golden horn and the silver horn retreated. Danzo wore a mask and stood on the roof with a knife. On his head was a black dragon flapping its wings. One person and one dragon turned their backs to the moon, making it difficult to see his face clearly. He touched his back, and there was a bloodstain on his back. They looked at the visitor with serious eyes. What a sharp knife, just the sword energy can hurt my steel-like body. Moonlight Wufang looked at the visitor in surprise. It's Danzo-sama. The time came to 5 minutes ago. Danzo was standing in the Anbu building looking at the moonlight and windless direction, and Hirazaru Sarutobi was walking back and forth in the room. He stopped and said to Danzo, "Why didn't you come back without Feng? It should be fine, after all, the limit of his bloodstain is through escape." Danzo turned around, went to the knife holder and picked up the knife. "Since you are worried, let's go and meet it. Wait for me. Return to the place of engagement. Are you the Danzo that Trash talked about?" Danzo pulled up the mask, revealing a clear face. "Exactly, but I think you are Trash. You." Silverhorn wanted to rush forward when he heard the words. Jin Zhao reached out to stop him. "Hey, don't you think that you alone can stop our two brothers?" "And me too." Hirazaru Sarutobi jumped to the center of the arena, and looked at the two of them, thinking they were handsome. Konoha Sarutobi Hiru Jonsing, then you must protect him? Of course. Then do it. Seeing that the enemy was only focused on talking to Danzo, his hair was pricked up, and when he heard that he could summon the ape Momang directly, he went up. When Danzo saw that he had already made a move, he was no longer polite. Wind done vacuum jade. A large fireball is ejected from Toothless Boy's mouth and sprayed towards the enemy. As expected by Danzo, Hiruzen Sarutobi was besieged by two people the moment he went up, and was blown away. Golden Horn, who has experienced many battles, saw Sarutobi Hiruzen's current weakness, his eyes lit up, good opportunity. Yin Zhao directly chased after him, ready to kick him to disable him. He didn't take the ninjutsu approaching him seriously, and he hadn't been hurt by the fire escape. At most, he suffered a slight injury, but it could make one person on the other side lose his combat effectiveness. But they didn't see the smile on the face of Sarutobi Hiruzen, who was knocked into the air. Yinkaku fell into ninjutsu, and after a while, the silver horn with a fiery appearance jumped out of the flame, and all combustible objects around were also ignited by the high temperature. Jin Zhao quickly used the water escape to extinguish the flames on his body, and it took several times of water escape to completely extinguish the flames. Silver Horn stood up on the ground, feeling the tingling sensation from the skin, and couldn't help asking Danzo, "What kind of fire escape are you? Ordinary fire escape is not so powerful." Danzo didn't answer his words, but drew his sword and prepared to fight. Seeing that his younger brother was injured, Jin Zhao was afraid that he would not be their opponent, so he stepped forward and said, "Wait a minute. Look at Anbu behind you, he's dying, right? We're here for peace in the ninja world, not to fight." Moonlight Wufang clutched his chest and said with difficulty, "Don't worry about me, I can hold on. It will be bad for you and me if you drag it on any longer. In this way, each of you takes a step back, as if there is no such thing tonight." Danzo glanced at Moonlight Wufang, who was already coughing up blood, and sighed inwardly. "Can." Jin Zhao was overjoyed. "Then let's say goodbye?" The two sides faced each other and slowly retreated vigilantly. When they couldn't see them, Hirazaru Sarutobi said unwillingly, "Captain, they are too cheap this time. Otherwise, what can we do? Hurry up and take Wufang to the infirmary." After Yuguang Wufang reluctantly thanked him, he passed out. "What, you said it failed?" Jin Zhao returned to the guest house and bowed his head to accept Lei Ying's abuse. Too trash. Konoha's side is just a special JNIN. If you can't catch the alive one, let others save it. Trash. Trash. Where's Silver Horn? He was injured so he couldn't be there. It really is trash. Come on, they were just being careless. The shadows next to them spoke words of comfort, but they couldn't hide the schadenfreude in their eyes. HMPH, think about how you will face Hokage tomorrow. Lei Ying walked out of the hall angrily, and Jin Zhao followed behind with his head down. Lei Ying led a group of people to his room, and Jin Zhao followed Lei Ying in. Lei Ying asked everyone to sit down, and he himself sat on the main seat, while Jin Zhao stood in front of Lei Ying. You two. What's going on? Lei Ying asked. Master Raikage, this. Say. Lei Ying stared at him hesitating. Originally, the two of his brothers could be said to be able to control the Konoha ninja to death, but who knew that an Anbu came out halfway, and I heard that it was called Danzo, wearing a white mask, he recalled. Isn't it too? Jin Zhao scratched his head. Oh, that person is not important, I will be able to stabilize him, the hardest one is Danzo. Shimura Danzo is indeed a troublesome opponent. When you get back, you sort out his information and give it to me. Lei Ying recalled the stubborn-eyed boy many years ago, and ordered calmly. As ordered. There's nothing else to do, let's go rest first. Jin Zhao backed away slowly. The moment he turned around, a hint of tyranny appeared in his submissive eyes, but disappeared in a blink of an eye. The time came to 5 minutes ago, Hokage building. The mountain rain is about to come and the wind is all over the building. Tobirama stood on the roof, looking towards the guest house. The ninjutsu brilliance that flashed from time to time, although suppressed by both sides, could not escape his eyes. With the cessation of the fighting, he returned to the office in an instant, pulled out the drawer, took out the list of spies that had been prepared and waited. The clock hanging on the wall slowly turned, and the fingers on the table tapped at a certain frequency. Suddenly, the movement of the hands stopped. Teacher. Along with a puff of white smoke, the figures of Danzo and Sarutobi Hiruzen appeared. I know what happened tonight. Take this item, and the people in Anbu will be at your disposal. After 1 month, I don't want the people on the list to still be alive. The two looked at the thick list that they had taken over, their eyes flashed, and they understood that this was a deterrent to them, so they agreed and left. The next day. At the gate of the village. Ha ha ha, don't give Hokage away. The lively conversation between I and Faye seems like a pair of friends who have known each other for many years. You are guests, you should give more, otherwise I will be angry and flatten Konoha one day, and I have no reason to go. Hokage was joking. Konoha is so prosperous and peaceful, how could anyone be willing to destroy it? Both parties were very friendly, as if nothing had happened. It's just that the bandage-wrapped silver horn is a little abrupt. Tokaima looked at the bandaged Yinjiao, as if he had just discovered it. So he asked with a smile, Lei Ying, why is your subordinate injured? After hearing this, Ai's face froze for a moment. He got burned accidentally. That's too careless. Why don't you leave him in Konoha to recover from his injuries? Fei Jian looked concerned, as if he was very worried about his injury. No, Hokage-sama, it's just a small injury, a small injury. After hearing everyone's anxiety, Yinkaku waved his hands again and again regardless of the injury. Danzo directly mixed in and guided everyone in the direction. Danzo. That's not right, the body training ninja of Laren village. I can't even burn him with fire dungeon. How could he be scalded by hot water? Many of the Konoha ninjas onlookers had fought against the ninjas of Laren village, and when they saw Silverhorn's injury, they all opened their mouths. Ninja. That's right, it's strange, they are not all thick-skinned and thick-skinned. Ninja B. Looking at his appearance, he must have practiced before. Although they lowered their voices, everyone present is a ninja, and the volume is the same. Listening to the whispering of Konoha's people, Lei Ren's delegation turned red with anger, and Lei Ying almost couldn't even maintain a smiling face. What an embarrassing guy, with so many people watching, I, Lei Ying, have lost all my face. Lei Ying thought with a stiff face, and his dissatisfaction with the two brothers Jinzhao and Yinzhao went up to a higher level. The smile on Fei Jian's face was bright again, and he approached Ai's ear with a smile. If you want to touch Konoha, you can try it, I will chop off the paw of anyone who dares to reach out. I couldn't hold back the expression on his face anymore. His face was ashen, and he looked at the retreating door, and the two sides did not give in to each other. One has a cold face with sharp eyes, and the other has eyes full of anger. Uchiha, Senju, Hinata and other family patriarchs stood behind Tobirama, looking at him with calm eyes. Everyone at the scene also realized that something was wrong, and they all became vigilant. In other people's territory, even the proud Lei Ren dared not make any extraordinary moves at this time. In the end, I could only bow his head aggrieved. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. I don't know who laughed first. The laughter shattered Lei Ren's ambition. Feijian stretched out his hands and pressed to both sides, suppressing the laughter of the crowd, squinted his eyes and looked at the shadows of other shadow villages present, then put his hands into his sleeves, turned around and walked back. Seeing him with his back unarmed, I raised his hand slightly, with a hint of unwillingness on his face, and put it back. Seeing this, Fei Jian also scattered the flying thunder god spell hidden in his sleeve. Just kidding. It's not worth it to gamble your life just to suppress Lei Ren's arrogance. The other ninja village delegations next to them also put away their little thoughts when they saw this. Turning around, he glanced around at the representatives of each ninja village. The people in each ninja village looked at the sky or the ground, and he was relieved to see that no one dared to look at him. Oh, by the way, don't be too happy too early. I will let all of you understand that not everyone can fight against me. After Feijian finished speaking, he ignored the representatives of each ninja village and walked back to the village on his own, waiting for the result of the action 3 days later. This time, we must completely wipe out the claws of each ninja village in the land of fire. Make them unable to see the reality of Konoha. At least to give Konoha and Fire Nation a few years of development opportunities. Otherwise, facing the siege of the 4 ninja villages now, there will be no possibility of victory. On the way back, he clenched his fist tightly and murmured, "Where the leaves dance, the fire is always alive." The border of the Fire Nation, the last one. Danzo squatted down, wiped the blood of a body that was still warm under his feet, and erased the only black name left on the document. Being in the desert, the wind and sand rolled up from time to time. This is the last spy, and also the most cunning one. He hunted and killed him for 3 full days before he was solved in this border desert. Give him another half an hour and he will be able to run to a border post in another country. Ow. A black shadow flew down from the sky, and Toothless Boy landed beside him with a low growl. Danzo threw the dried fish up, it grabbed it in one bite, and rubbed him dissatisfiedly while eating. He had no choice but to scratch its jaw with his hands, and the hard scales became soft the moment he touched it. I know you don't like to eat dried fish. I will take you to eat barbecue after returning to Konoha, okay? Shaking his head, he broke Danzo's hand away, turned his head to look around, ran to pull up a withered tree, and wrote a 3 on the gobi with the trunk. After finishing writing, he stuck out his tongue and looked at Danzo eagerly. Unconsciously, he touched his wallet, which was still full, and nodded. After getting the consent, she circled around him excitedly, and then lay down in front of him. Turning his head and looking at Danzo, the excitement in his eyes could not be suppressed, and he kept urging him with his tail. You guys are really impatient, forget it, go back now. Scratching its chin helplessly, it jumped onto the dragon's back. Call. After a puff of smoke and dust passed, Yi Fuan's figure was no longer there, only a smaller and smaller black spot remained in the distance. Danzo used chakra to control the wind that became violent due to extreme speed, while observing the land of the country of fire below. From the yellow sand to the lush greenery, the air inhaled into the nasal cavity is no longer so dry. A day later, at the gate of Konoha, the guard ninjas of Konoha Gate were chatting. Hey, I don't know what to do with Konoha in the future. When the village was built, there were obviously Uchiha Madara, the first generation, and the second generation of Hokage-sama, but now only Higama-sama is left. Who says it's not? But now Konoha's younger generation is also growing up, especially Danzo-sama. I heard that you can fight dozens of rounds with Hokage-sama. Really? Suddenly, a black shadow rushed through the Konoha Gate fiercely, and the strong wind almost made them unable to stand still. A new ninja just wanted to yell enemy attack. The old ninja on the side stopped him and pointed at someone who had already run to the barbecue shop. No, that's the Danzo-sama you were discussing just now. Jingle bell. The wind chime of the rotisserie is ringing because of the incoming customers. Meat, I want barbecue. Ooh. Welcome. It turns out to be Master Danzo and Little Toothless. Boss Akita, who was originally settling accounts, saw the visitor clearly, and immediately went to greet him with a smile on his face, and then asked the waiter to hang a sign outside the door to suspend business. This is a big customer, and this month's performance depends on him. Boss, hurry up and serve the meat, I have endured it for half a month. Both Danzo and Toothless looked in the direction of the back kitchen with glowing eyes. I'm coming. Several waiters came out carrying the ingredients together, with huge pieces of meat with snow patterns, marinated sea fish pieces, fresh green vegetables, and various sauces on display one by one. When the oil on the meat dripped into the oven, the charcoal fire in the oven made a chirping sound, and the wonderful smell quickly swept the entire restaurant. The color of the meat gradually turns golden, and then turns into burnt yellow. I'm gonna start now. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. Danzo slapped his head. With the seal of both hands, a shadow clone was summoned. Hurry up and report the mission to Hokage-sama, I'll start. The shadow clone looked at the shameless person, suppressed the saliva that was about to flow from his mouth, silently made an international friendly gesture, then turned and left. I can't wait to stuff the grilled meat with sauce and rolled vegetables into my mouth in one breath. The taste of vegetables and the taste of meat are perfectly combined. Readily. Look at Toothless next to him. The sea fish that had been marinated was thrown into the air by the waiter, and he quickly roasted it with a mouthful of longyan, and then swallowed it with the belt bone, and then licked it around his mouth with his big tongue. His big face was filled with satisfaction in an instant. Seeing that the waiter was shocked by the food intake of the two of them, Toothless looked at the empty plate, looked at him suspiciously, and patted the table with his paw, indicating that the food should be served quickly. Oh. The waiter Rumang Fangsheng quickly brought up all kinds of fish. The novice chef who was in charge of processing the ingredients was busy preparing in the back kitchen. Looking at the horrible food intake, he couldn't help but sigh. Are these two things always so edible? The food they eat is heavier than them. Stop talking. There are still so many ingredients that have not been processed, hurry up. The chefs looked at the ingredients that had been sorted like hills next to them, and their hands holding the pot couldn't help shaking. The head chef tore off a white ribbon and tied it around his head. Go all out, everyone, and bet on the glory of the chef. Today's salary is doubled. Oh. All the chefs responded instantly with enthusiasm. At this time, the few remaining tables of guests in the restaurant put down their bowls and chopsticks, and watched the dragon eating alone with wide eyes. The barbecue is eaten in the mouth, and it flows into the stomach along the esophagus. The powerful stomach acid continuously absorbs the food, and under the action of the small intestine, it turns into energy and stores it in the cells of the whole body. As a result, the cells continue to send joyful signals, just like rain after a long drought. I don't know how long it took, but the sunlight outside the window went from strong to exhausted. Boom. The door of the restaurant was pushed open at once, raising a faint dust. He happily patted his unchanging stomach, it's delicious. The chefs and waiters behind him collapsed to the ground, panting heavily. Finally gone, this is another successful guardian of the chef's honor. The boss in the office was delighted to see today's turnover, and turned to the head chef who was barely standing beside him and said, everyone can take a day off tomorrow, we are all exhausted today. The shadow clone has long been released, and the perfect completion of this task has relieved the tense face on Tobarama's face a little. Next, is to go home. The sun at sunset lightly shone on them. At this time, Toothless Boy folded his wings and walked slowly along the street with Danzo. Feeling this rare serenity, they were physically and mentally exhausted after many days of fighting, but seeing the smiles on the faces of the villagers around them, they felt that everything was worth it. It's a pity, the wolves will come eventually, although they were all shocked this time, but later. If I remember correctly, the first time the 4 great ninja villages besieged Konoha, this was definitely a tough battle that tested all aspects of the village. Naruto office. Putting down the official business in his hand, Senshu Fama raised his head and looked at several Konoha clan elite jonin who walked into the door together and were also faintly confronting each other. They are all participants in the village high-level meeting. What's the matter, everyone? He greeted first, secretly guessing why they came. In recent years, Konoha can be said to be developing with great strides. Although the big tree protecting the village has fallen, its strength is still firmly at the top of the ninja world. Under his own planning, there should still be some days of peace in the future. The last time so many representatives of the ninja clan came together, it was because I successively founded Anbu and Konoha Academy, which shook their interests and status. After they came together, they were suppressed by myself. However, I haven't done anything in the past few months. Recently, there shouldn't be any major issues that need their attention. Facing the question from Senju Tobi, all the Junin glanced at each other, and a veteran of the Senju family said with a smile, I heard that the child adopted by Shimura Danzo has regarded Konoha as his home, and he has a lot of sense of belonging. Senshu Shinobu said such words, but his eyes were wandering around. It was obvious that drunkards were not interested in drinking. If this is the case, then I will continue to act with them. Tokaima turned the pen in his hand, thinking about how to deal with it in his mind, but he couldn't help showing a little pride when he mentioned Danzo. This is also normal. Those who are close to vermilion are red and those who are close to ink are black. Let alone staying with Danzo for so many years, even if you touch him a little, you can feel the burning will of fire in his words and deeds. That's true, after all, the person he is closest to in Konoha is that Shimura Danzo. Nodding in agreement, that Senju Ya-nin seemed to have thought of something, and fixedly looked at Senju's gate, with a hint of eagerness in his eyes. If I remember correctly, he will also join the new class of students this year and enter the ninja school. The pen in his hand paused for a moment, and after putting it down, he crossed his palms on the table, his eyes flashed, and it seemed that the main show was about to begin. After half a sound, he opened his mouth slowly. Indeed, among this class of students, there are quite a few notable ones, and it may be the class with the highest graduation success rate since its establishment. The first son of the Hitaki family, the second son of the Kato family, the Hyuga clan and the Uchiha clan, two well-known pupil families, will also join, as well as many civilian children who have already shown their talents. Senju said the candidates for this year's admission like a few treasures, and there was a touch of affirmation in his eyes. These people will definitely be the mainstay of Konoha in the future. Being in the same period as them, compared to students of other classes, the pressure will be very high. Uchiha Kamiji ignored the eyes of Senju Ya-nin who was about to kill, and stepped forward and said. He looked at the jonin behind him who were ready to move, so he turned his heart and spoke directly. However, the most noteworthy one should be the princess of our Thousand Hands clan. After he finished speaking, he looked provocatively at Uchiha Jonin who spoke just now. This is his greatest advantage. Clansmen with the same surname, look at the labor management ratio of these coquettish sluts behind them. The lord is the main palace. The Junin of all races behind her hate her teeth. You must know that she has an indelible blood relationship with the first generation and the second generation of Hokage. If anyone can become the head teacher of this class, his political power will undoubtedly be greatly improved. Even if it is really not possible, it is a good choice to be a teacher and make a good relationship. If Fujian still can't see it for this sake, he might as well abdicate, and look at them eagerly with a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Seeing that Tokima hadn't spoken for a long time, they couldn't help but said, Master Hokage, have you arranged for the teacher of the class after enrollment? This matter can't be sloppy. I feel that the will of fire of every teacher in the ninja school has to stand the test. I personally think that the will of fire is a true portrayal of me. Are you still shameless? It's obviously me, Hokage-sama. I think I'm the best choice. Seeing the jonin who started arguing as they talked, Tobirama raised his brows and tapped the table rhythmically with his fingers. There is no need to doubt the words of the Junin in front of them in terms of their loyalty to the village alone. Otherwise they would not come here with such confidence. There is absolutely no problem with their ability to be teachers, but the difficulty lies in that none of them have the ability to convince others willingly. When they heard the knocking on the door, they gradually became silent. After seeing them quiet down, the plain but affirmative words slowly spit out from his mouth. It is obvious that he already has a candidate in his heart. I understand what you guys mean. He stopped his tapping fingers, crossed his hands under his chin, and looked at the few people in front of him with appreciation. You are indeed a good choice. You are worthy of my trust in terms of character and will. Hearing that Hokage whom they admire praised themselves so much, they straightened their waists a little bit. Although they concealed it, they could still see their superficial joy. But I think it's better to be safe. I want them all. You can all be teachers. As for the head teacher candidate, I already have an excellent candidate in my heart. They looked at each other with an inexplicable meaning in their hearts. Let's say it's a success, and it's a wedding dress for someone else. Let's say it failed, and I became a teacher. Strong curiosity drove them to ask, which ninja is it? The current vice captain of the Anbu has 6 years of teaching assistant experience, Shimura Danzo. Several people were slightly surprised but not too shocked. After all, there were not many candidates in the village who could convince them.
I agree with Shimura Danzo as the head teacher of this class. Senju Yanin took the lead in expressing his opinion. In his opinion, Shimura Danzo can also be regarded as the Hokage faction with roots, and he is right in his arms.
A trace of fear flashed in Uchiha Kaminin's eyes. It turned out to be this evil star. He sighed in his heart, stepped forward and said, I agree too. Seeing that the ninjas of the 2 major families of Konoha agreed, the rest of the ninjas could only nod. In any case, at least the task given to them by the family has met expectations. Danzing, who had just returned home and rested for a few days, couldn't help laughing when he received the letter of appointment from his teacher. Ha ha ha, I promised to be a teacher, but it turned out to be 3 years and 3 years, and it has been 6 years, teacher. Turn over and sing now, woohoo. In the middle of laughing, something suddenly occurred to me, and I turned over the thin letter of appointment and checked it carefully many times. Finally, after confirming something, he collapsed on the chair with a face of despair, and the paper in his hand slowly fell to the ground. No way, I have to work 2 more jobs. The donkeys in the production team don't do that either. It's really worthy of Qian Shufajian. In the future, you don't even want to live in peace after retirement. It's not a small amount to arrange 8 blind dates for you every day. Another round of entrance exams. Since the first entrance examination process was finalized, the subsequent examinations have also continued to use the process basis revised by Danzo. Of course, there are also changes. For example, on stage, Danzo is the C position this time. Naruto speech, written test, chakra detection, physical fitness test, class teacher's own items. In the previous written test, it can only be said that they are the students with the highest gold content in the past. Everyone is writing hard, and the group went down and walked around, and found that most of the answers were correct. Except for some kid with white hair scratching his head. Seeing him like that, Shimura Danzo suddenly felt his hands a little itchy.
Xing, you boy, Ida easy to copy. The 5-year exam and 3-year simulation compiled by labor and management, it seems that you didn't move a single word. At least half of the questions in the test paper are similar to the questions in it.
Tsunade sitting in front of him naturally knew that he was always confused when he encountered an exam, so he moved the test paper to the side, just enough for Jiraiya behind him to see it too. However, this method, not to mention fooling Danzo, even the Chunin teacher who is proctoring the exam. Of course, Danzing will not arrest them. You must know that these people are almost predetermined children who will go to school. One Tsunade, Princess Konoha, and the other, Jiraiya, is related to both the Senju family and Shimura Danzo. What's more, the war is getting closer and closer to them. For the number of ninjas in the village, of course, the more the better. Any seedling who can become an excellent ninja cannot be easily let go. Of course, if it is true that the plot is too bad, then Danzo will not tolerate it. Ding dong. The ninja who was in charge of recording the exam time rang the bell hanging in the teaching building. The melodious sound of the bell symbolized the end of the theory exam. Danzo gathered his thoughts and finally scanned the dozens of students in the exam room below. Coughed slightly, cleared his throat, and said loudly, "This exam is over. The theory test is not difficult. Brother Danzo asked me to do so many questions." Tsunade jumped out of the examination room. Thinking of the questions that Danzo had arranged for her and Jiraiya, she couldn't help but shudder. "It seems that you are very relaxed, Jiraiya. Are you okay with the exam just now? Orochimaru looked at the relaxed and whistling Jiraiya beside him and asked worriedly. That's for sure. Who is the young master? Jiraiya wanted to brag a little bit, but felt Tsunade's gaze beside him, and swallowed the rest of the words silently. Orochimaru looked at him with a smile on the corner of his mouth, obviously guessing the essence. Because of Danzo's relationship, the trio of yellow, gambling, and poisonous met in advance. Since Dashimaru's parents discovered his talent, they have been visiting from time to time according to the address given by Danzo. After coming and going, Dashawan also met his two lifelong friends. Everyone, gather at the training ground. Jonin from Hyuga's family stood on the high platform and said to many examinees, interrupting their whispering. He is the Jonin who is in charge of the physical fitness test. The white eyes of the Hyuga family can see through the meridian level, which can ensure the health and safety of the students and avoid any harm. With the sound of a whistle, all the students put on the same weight and started to run desperately together. Compared with the previous life, the children in this world can be said to be little monsters. What's more, most of the students already have chakra, and it may take a long time to determine the results if they follow the ordinary laps. Slowly, the gap between civilian students and family students gradually widened. Except for a very small number of civilian students with excellent talents who could keep up with the first echelon, the speed of other civilian students gradually slowed down. The family students have accepted the teachings of their family elders since they were young. Even the scumbags inside have been more or less exposed to some chakra usage methods under the influence of their ears and eyes. This is a condition that is difficult for civilian ninjas to achieve. If it wasn't for his teacher to consciously promote some civilian ninjas, it would be difficult for the village's senior management and elite departments to see a commoner ninja. Perhaps only a person like Orochimaru can break through this class cage with his monstrous talent, but how many years will it take for a person like him to appear? As time progressed, some students had already stopped. Danzo looked at Hinata Shinobu, and he shook his head. Obviously they didn't try their best, they just stopped because they were tired. I silently lowered their ratings in my heart. For those who did not try their best, as long as their talents are not at the top level, their future achievements will not be far away. Stand on the side, your physical fitness test is over. Danzo signaled the teacher in charge of the students next to him to come forward and guide them to the rest area. Time passed bit by bit, more and more people stopped, and the students who are still on the field are all strong-willed people. For example, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, Hitaki Sakumo. In the original time and space, there is no one who is not a powerful person who is coercive. Hinata couldn't bear to know what he saw, and recruited Danzo to his side. Danzo-sama, look at the kid over there. I can already feel with my white eyes that his body has almost reached its limit, and if he keeps running, his body will be damaged. Danzo followed his gaze. It was a child with a shaved watermelon head. His body was trembling due to excessive exercise. Every step he took, his thighs could be seen trembling. The green training clothes on his body were as wet as if they had just been fished out of the water. It can be said that running up to now, it is entirely relying on his belief that he is far superior to his peers to support his already numb legs. 1 circle, 2 circles, 3 circles. There were fewer and fewer people on the field, and he was the only one left. Everyone looked at Matt Dai, who was still running mechanically, and they all showed disbelief. Most adults do not have such willpower. As the vision in front of him became darker and darker, his running speed became slower and slower, and the ground under his feet became soft, and it seemed that he might fall at any time. Finally, he became unsteady and fell forward. His eyes were tightly closed, obviously unconscious. At the critical moment, Danzo, who was standing next to Hinata Shinobu, turned into an afterimage and supported him. Good and fast speed. His white eyes could only see a slight afterimage of him. You must know that he is a member of the clan, and the purity of his white eyes is not low. As soon as Danzo came into contact with his body, he found that there were a lot of hidden injuries in his body. He should have run many times in private this time, but he didn't know how to protect his body. This kind of body may not be visible on weekdays, but at a corresponding age, he will definitely be plagued by diseases. Well done, Mate Dai. Hearing someone call his name, he opened his eyes, and saw Konoha's most dazzling genius supporting him, and he immediately lifted his spirits. You know, Shimura Danzo is his idol. How happy it is to be supported by someone he admires. Danzo hesitated for a moment, pretending to be groping in his pocket, but actually took out the little red bottle from the system space and handed it to him. As a basic healing item, it is most suitable for treating his injuries. Matt Dai didn't care about 21, just took it from his hand and drank it without even asking a question, because he believed that the idol he had admired since childhood would not harm him. Danzing had already thought up a speech to deal with his inquiry, but he never thought that he drank what he gave him without even asking, which warmed his heart. As soon as the red liquid was swallowed, Matt Dai felt a warm force spread from his stomach to his whole body, and his whole body felt warm, just like soaking in a hot spring. His body seemed to be repairing gradually, and the hidden wounds left before were also healed. No matter how young he was, he knew how precious this kind of thing was. He actually gave it to himself, who is the tail of the crane, because it was the first time he met Danzo. Is this what it feels like to be recognized? He helped him to the resting place, and as soon as he put him down, he saw Maitadai bursting into tears, his nose and tears mixed together. I was taken aback immediately. What is going on with this little brother? Even without limbs and no consciousness, he lay on the ground and shouted loudly, "This is youth. Ha 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 ha." Facing the admiration or strange eyes of the crowd, he looked at the blue sky and laughed wantonly. At least, on this day, he showed it with practical actions. Hard work will pay off. Genius is not invincible. From morning to afternoon, after eating the lunch that someone added a blood bottle to, the physical strength of the students who took the exam was restored to the best state. When their physical strength recovered, they were still full of surprises. Their bodies knew it well, so why did they suddenly recover so quickly? Am I the son of destiny? But the instigator had already walked to the center of the training ground, cleared his throat, and interrupted their thoughts with 2 coughs. Seeing that all the students present turned their gazes over, Danzo took out some props in the ninja gear. After taking it out, there was a pleasant sound when they collided. That's right, it's the Hokage ancestral exam. Grab the bell. The time limit is 10 minutes. During this time, whoever can touch the bell will be considered as passing the assessment. After all the students walked to the spacious training ground, Danzo smiled slightly. Please don't hold back, because I am Shimura Danzo. Most of the students present look at me and I look at you. Although they have heard the name Shimura Danzo from their parents, there are dozens of them here, and they are all quasi-ninjas who have extracted chakra. How is it possible to ensure that the bell will not be touched under the siege of so many people? Like Tsunade, Jiraiya, a student who has seen Danzo's true strength, has a dignified face. You must know that the person in front of you is a well-known guy in the ninja world, and you must find a good opportunity to have hope. As the hourglass representing the exam time began to count, a few bold students were slowly approaching the center of the field, and the seemingly lazy Danzo seemed to be defenseless. They looked at each other when they were a few meters away, and they could see the joy in their eyes. Several people swooped one by one, their small hands getting closer and closer to the bell on Danzang's waist, and he avoided the rough siege with a slight sideways movement. The main purpose of this test is to allow them to show off their physical skills during the attack, so that they can teach them in accordance with their aptitude. You must know that after so many years as a teaching assistant, the students have made obvious progress in all subjects that they are in charge of. Relying on my kind education method, none of the students who have been taught by him in the past have not said, "Good." The students ran up one by one, giving them the illusion that they were almost able to catch the bell every time. Only a few elite students on the periphery can see how relaxed Danzo is. The sound of bells rang from time to time on the field, and the figure seemed to be strolling in the crowd, with a graceful and refined figure, like a ray of breeze. The sand in the hourglass was getting less and less, and Tsunade and the others who were outside couldn't sit still anymore, so they were about to implement the plan that they had just discussed. Jiraiya and Matt Dai rushed up impatiently. In their view, although Brother Danzo is indeed powerful, he is just a bell, as long as he has hands. Watch me take its head. The green and white figures outflanked the past from the left and right sides, and the speed was indeed much faster than other people. But Danzo didn't seem to notice them at this time, just avoiding the attacks of other students in front of him again and again, their eyes lit up at the same time. The opportunity is coming. Chakra is used on the legs, and the speed of the body is increased again. It's near, it's near. The golden bell was only half a step away from their hands, so close at hand. Both of them had excited expressions on their faces at the same time. The first is mine. As everyone knows, all their actions are happening under Danzo's nose, and even if the number of these children is increased 10 times, they will not cause any trouble to him. But the speed of the two of them is really good, already has the speed of an ordinary ninja. If he put a little bit of water in, maybe they could, probably, maybe touch the bell. At the moment when they were about to make contact, Danzo staggered his body, and the bell that was about to be handed suddenly disappeared from his eyes. They were slightly taken aback, and their heads hit each other hard. What? How fast it was just now, and how painful it is now. The two of them fell to the ground holding their foreheads together. With the failure of the two's attacks, the assessment was coming to an end, and only the last handful of sand remained. When the body was about to fall to the ground, 3 small hands touched it. According to common sense, there was nowhere to rely on it. The bell must be taken by them. Finally couldn't help it. Danzo's mouth curled into a smile. Tapping the air with the toes, the shaving skills appeared at this moment, breaking through their encirclement in an instant. Looking down, I happened to see their surprised expressions. She gracefully rolled over in the air and landed lightly, just as the sand in the hourglass had just finished falling. Time up. The gymnastics assessment is over. Entrance exams are all over. The teacher who was in charge of calculating the time yelled at the students who were still about to move. After handing over a group of students to the teachers, Danzo returned to the Thousand Hands land with the 2 little ones who were exhausted today. After working as a teaching assistant for so many years, most of the teachers in the school have been transferred, but he was the only one who remained motionless. In terms of qualifications, it is estimated that only the retired old security guard at the school gate can compare with him. There is a saying circulating in the teacher circle. The dancing teaching assistant who is hardworking, and the school teacher who runs the water. He, who has already become the school's top bully, said that this kind of power should be sprinkled.